Tick-tock time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D Wood. With me now on screen, I've got Issa. Issa, how you doing, Issa? Good.
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for asking.
And of course, he's dressed up like the Mahdi. No, seriously, dude, you need to find pictures of him. You need to find your earliest pictures of you and your beanie, and then find the earliest picture of him wearing his beanie. And then if yours is earlier, I'd roll with it. I'd say he copied you and you're the true Mahdi. Roll with that. Hey, no one could hear you clapping because you muted yourself.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to interrupt.
Clap again, man. Okay. And we also have Jai and DOC who are just live. How you guys doing?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Hello.
Hey, what's up? How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. Just ended the stream, like you said, jamming out to some, what's his name, Sal's and Polemics Pulse music at the end there.
He does make some sweet jams, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I'm glad him and Spinning Remixes are on our side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we wouldn't.
Plus, it would be haram in Islam, right? So.
Yeah, that's. Hey, no, seriously. I mean, you've got, they do make rap music and stuff like that, but it's hard to take it seriously when we all know it's haram, and so they can never do that wholeheartedly. So we need to be aware of that advantage that we have music on our side. And we should always be just making smooth jams. Hold up. Hey, we got IP. We got IP in the chat. Hey, IP, if you're bored, you can just jump in, man. IP says, Mahdi Isa, can I be your sword of justice for Krishna and the truth of Buddhism?
It's cute. That's funny.
By the way, if you come in though, IP, you gotta wear a beanie. Okay, you gotta wear a beanie.
Yeah, we should all be wearing beanies all the time. We're all gonna rock beanies forever. So anyway, everyone, has anyone heard of this Islamic Dilemma?
I never heard of it.
Something about that.
It sounds so new to me. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, Issa, I've been saying for a while. I don't know what your position is, and it's hard to predict because you Sufis are all like, your heads are totally way up in the clouds and stuff like this, and it's hard to predict what you're gonna be. But I remember saying, like, if I for some reason believed in the Quran as revelation, but I was still aware of what it said about the previous scriptures, I would have to somehow just think it's all from God, and any differences, I would try to reconcile them. And if there are differences that don't seem like they can be reconciled, I would just have to conclude that God revealed all of those and he was fine with those kinds of differences or something along those lines. And I said, I don't know what Issa's position is, but if if anyone was somewhere in the ballpark of that, it would probably be Issa. And so we wanted to get you on to get your perspective, so I finally know what your position is on the Islamic dilemma, or basically on what the Quran is saying about the previous scriptures. And you can either share that now at the beginning, or you can kind of share it as we go along. But everyone who's watching, we're going to watch some clips from a live stream. EF Dawah. Jai pointed me to a clip where they had a bunch of guys, and they're all they're kind of arguing about different responses. Apparently, I haven't watched it. I did see about a minute of it, which is how I knew they had it. But it popped up in my feed that they were live talking about the Islamic dilemma. So I clicked on it, and right when I clicked on it, it was some guy asking about it, and then the two guys, I don't know their names, but we'll see in a second when we put them up on the screen. But the guys were saying, yeah, and so we have totally different responses, but they both work. And I was just thinking, neither one of those work at all. And so anyway, I was interested in going through a little bit of that. But yeah, so we're gonna check out some of that live stream, and we'll share our thoughts. You haven't seen this, right, Issa?
I have not.
Okay, you haven't seen this. I watched about a minute of it. So, but I am familiar with some of the guys in the clip that Jai pointed me to. So I have kind of an idea of what some of their responses are. But yeah, that's what we'll be checking out. That's what we'll be checking out today, guys. And these Dawa channels, man, they just can't stop talking about the Islamic dilemma. They can't stop talking about it. We keep thinking, we'll just mind our own business and talk about something else. They're like, no, we have to talk about the Islamic dilemma. And we're like, okay, if you guys want to talk about the Islamic dilemma, that's fine with us.
And it's really funny because it's in the clip, and just like you, I just found out about this today. I didn't know that they did this, but they have it like chaptered, like this timestamp to this timestamp. We talk about this thing. We talk about this thing. So I just like went to one that I thought would be interesting, and it happened to be, like you said, like a little mini Dawa civil war on how to which approach to take. And one of the things that they said was that this can be used against them, something to that effect. We'll hear their exact words how they said it. They were like, we don't want to give like unnecessary, like, what do you say, ammunition? I don't remember the wording. I don't remember the wording that he said. But
giving us ammunition.
Yeah, it was like they basically know that this stuff is going to be used against them, but yeah, they still went and did it anyway.
They still gave the ammunition anyway.
Good stuff, funny stuff.
Wondering when my camera starts shutting down. But after, say, this camera starts shutting down, which I could troubleshoot by looking it up, but then every time the live stream's over, I forget that it's a problem until I go live again, and then the camera cuts out. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's good. That's good, huh? And by the way, they're
aware of it. They're aware.
Yeah, they're totally correct that this is something we would use because they always sit there and say, like every Dawa guy says, oh, this is so dumb. This is not something anyone takes seriously and stuff. And then say, okay, what is the Quran saying? And they all disagree with each other. It's like, okay, even that you're kind of proving the point that you guys can't figure out what the Quran is even saying in a way that makes sense. If you guys actually came up with a solid response that fits what the Quran says and lines up with reality and makes sense, you'd be using that. You can't, which is why you come up with completely different positions, and one of them will do better with like one bit of evidence, but it doesn't work over here, and the other they'll come up with something that kind of does better over here, but it doesn't make sense. They can't come up with anything that actually makes sense, and that's the problem. The real point of the Islamic dilemma is that you guys have an incoherent position, and the question is there a coherent position? And I gave kind of my thoughts if I tried to make a coherent position. But even then, I don't know how that would work if it's okay. It's all revelation, and there's some areas where it doesn't act. It's just like God revealed different things, and He's okay with it. He's okay with revealing different things because, as Surah 5 verse 48 says, He wanted different groups competing with each other in good works. But Issa, did you want to share any thoughts at the beginning, or you want to check out some clips and such, and then break it down as we go?
What would you prefer?
Well,
I have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a chance to say everything you want. Why don't you give us like the short version, and you can kind of unpack it as we go through stuff.
Okay, so I want to say that I've been listening to the Christian apologists on this matter, and I think y'all have a much better reading than what I hear from the Muslim apologists. So that's my number one. My first framing of it, but I'm actually hoping to do my master's thesis on this. I've been kind of my flame has been lit on this, so I've already written a paper on it. It's like a 10-page paper. So basically, the rundown is, and I'm going to use the Baha'i for this situation too, because Baha'is are Islam-ish. They come out of Shia Messianism, and they basically overall reconcile all the texts, right? They say there are new epochs and stuff like that because they actually believe in the Prophet of Islam too. That the Baha'i take this position, right? But they believe that Baha'u'llah is like the messenger of the age, and that there was a Bab. Baha'i theology, there's a whole story for that. But basically, the point is...
Did you say there's a Bab?
Yeah, there's a Bab, the door or the gate.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
giant DOC
I
know
was
this
like,
word, but
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was like, I know two
Yeah.
Bobs. There's Bob the Builder, or Bob, well, who goes by Bob of
Young
Speaker's
Bob.
Corner now, and then Young Bob. And there's like, there's a Bob, and I was like, no, there's two. But all right, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, this is like the Bob who is like, according to Baha'i theology, he's like John the Baptist in Baha'i, and the Christ figure is Baha'u'llah. That's how the narrative is. That's how usually Baha'i folks will transmit the narrative of this. But basically, they in the tradition they reconcile all the texts, and I think you have to. If you're taking an Islamic position, the whole point of the Islamic position is it's a continuation tradition. So if Islam is real, it has to be dependent on the Tanakh or the Torah, the Zabur. I would say that the Torah that's referred to would be the Tanakh. It would have to be the canonical Hebraic canon, and which also includes the Psalms, the Zabur, and the Injil, which is the Gospels. It would have to include that, because if it doesn't, then what is the foundation? If you have a house and you don't have a foundation, well, your house collapses, right? So you have to have this, or you don't have anything. So it doesn't make sense. It's like I've listened to Muslim apologists attack Christianity and Judaism, and they attack these traditions, and I'm like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're attacking yourself when you do this, because you're destroying your own canon. And if you say, well, the canon is corrupt, even though these texts don't say it, you're correct. The Quran itself does not say it, and I would even say earlier classical scholars do not take this position of the corruption of the texts, because it's funny that both Jai and DOC brought this up, and I think DOC mentioned this. If there is a corruption, you need an original source text, and I wrote that in my paper where I said, okay, we have stela that are from 3,000 years ago that we can find, which are like these rock formations with, kind of like script, like engravings in them. So it's not hard to find this. Do we believe in modern science or we don't? And if we take the position, because I've noticed a lot of Islamic apologists will say, I'm going to use critical theory, and we brought this up in our last conversation. I'm going to use critical theory against the New Testament and the Hebrew Scriptures, but I'm not going to use critical theory against Islamic traditions and the Quran. I said that's really dishonest and disingenuous approach. If you're going to use this tool set, then you have to be equitable with the tool set. You can't say I'm going to critique the Torah, I'm going to critique the New Testament, say they're false, and then the Quran and the Hadith are just unassailable. If you're going to use that framework, you have to go all the way with it, or I think it's deceptive and dishonest. That would be my position. But basically, what you said is what I would agree with, is that you have to do a reconciliation maneuver. You have to say, okay, the Quran has a certain kind of framing of these texts, and there's different. I know this is going to sound very goofy Sufi, but there's different spiritual dimensions of these texts. There's different layers of how we can look at the text.
Layers to the game, like tiramisu.
Exactly.
Tiramisu.
Exactly. Yeah, there's different maqamat or madrega. There's different spiritual stations of how one can frame that. I would say that that's really the position you would have to take. And I understand that that would be difficult if you're a person who's like, I'm a textual literalist, and you're like, well, what the text says is what it is. Like if I took the position of a Salafi, if I said I'm a Salafi, then I'm in trouble. If I take the Salafi position, I'm in big trouble, because I have to take the Quran literally. And that's most of the people that you've been debating are Salafi. So they're stuck in a deep conundrum. They have to believe that these texts are true. And then just saying, well, they're a phantom text. Well, what you're doing is you're doing speculation. This is a personal speculation that you're creating, and it would be an invalid take on that. And I just think that's problematic. So I would say that you would have to take the reconciliation approach, and and that's what I'm explaining in my paper. I'm like, if you're going to deal with this, you have to do that. You can't critique these texts, because if you attack the text, you attack yourself. You attack Islam. And I'm like, it's not a smart maneuver. And I think that's so. Like when I was watching it was interesting. Jai and DOC had that video that we had watched before about the Christian sisters versus the Muslim sisters, and the Muslim sisters were like, the one sister who never read any of the text said, well, the text is corrupt, but I've never read the text. And I was like, how do you know that? How can you make such a like, I don't know, like such a bold claim.
Yeah.
You're making such a bold claim when you've never actually engaged the text. You
Oh.
don't know what the text says.
Oh, and by the
Yes.
way, I mean, the interesting part is, it's like, okay, where did you get that? Where did you get that? You heard it.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear it from the Quran. You heard it from some dawah guy, and you believed him. And then when other people try to tell you what the Quran actually says, you side with the dawah guy who said something to you and not with what the Quran actually says. And that's the really weird, confusing part about all this.
And you're correct. The Quran makes the affirmation that you've stated. And I think all the Christian apologists are saying it's shocking that I hear Muslims across the board say that it's false. I'm like, I think it's a completely valid assertion. Just the problem is because they take a literalistic approach, they suffer greatly for that take. Because if you're taking that take, then you basically are throwing Islam, you're throwing the Quran, you're throwing the Hadith, you're throwing everything under the bus. You have to do that if you want to take the literalist approach. I heard John Fontaine's approach of the phantom text. I'm like, where are we getting this from? I'm like, I'm sorry, do you believe in history? Do you believe in academia? Academia shows us
not.
that there are ancient texts. And this is the biggest problem that I have. And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time, but the biggest problem I have is to take their position, you have to believe in a global conspiracy theory. You have to believe that all of the Christians, the followers of Christ, all the Israelites, they did this global conspiracy where they took all their texts and they corrupted it syncretically across the globe. That sounds insane and ridiculous.
It does.
That's a ridiculous position to say. I'm like, I mean, if you were a conspiracy theorist, I guess that might work. But if you're like an honest person who's looking at with integrity at the text, I'm like, it's impossible. And also when we look, it's hard because when you look at the Quran, when it refers to Bani Israel or Yahud or Nasara, because Nasara is a word that refers to Christians. It's an interesting word because it means like a helper, right? Some people say it's like a Nazarene. It's an interesting word to refer to a Christian instead of like a Messiah, like something like that, someone who's like following the Messiah, right? So it's strange that they use the word Nasara is used, but when we're looking at the Quran, are the people referred to like particular, like are they specific or are they general? And I think I would have to argue that they have to be specific because the Quran mentions that the Jews believe that Ezra is the son of God. Well, globally speaking, that's just impossible. That was actually brought up in the conversation with MENJ and I and God Logic and AP. I'm like, that's just an impossibility. It can't be. It can't be referring to all Jews. And it also says that the kind of the Trinity with Christians has, the Virgin Mary as being a part of that. And Christians don't believe in that. So it has to be specific Christians and specific Jews. So you have to, there's like different layers that you have to engage with. You can't make general claims about Christians and Jews because the text doesn't allow for that if you're taking a literalistic approach. And I wanted to add one thing. I wanted to make an apology from our last stream or the stream from before.
About time.
Yeah, I know. I had said John 3:16. I meant John 14:6. That was what I was referring to. And one of the Christian channels had put the clarity for that, and I appreciate that. And in one of our other conversations, I had inverted Wahi and Ilham. So I just wanted to make sure because I like to try to keep them honest. If I ever make a mistake, I want to clarify that.
Do not worry about little things like that. No one's gonna be bothered by a messed up reference in a live stream. If it's in a prepared video, then you get everything right. Live stream, no, we mess up all the time, so you're good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Joe here says, who is Issa? Is he a Muslim? Well, not according to some people who have really strict positions and say no one else is a Muslim unless you agree with me on all these things. Issa would be a Sufi Muslim, and here we have it right here. The Mule 52 said, "Yeah, Issa is a goofy Sufi." Very rude, very rude. Yeah, go ahead and. Oh boy. No, Issa, we don't want a 20-minute explanation of Sufism, but if you wanted to give like a 1 minute, or like a 1 minute version of your position, because you've talked about this stuff before, and we're focusing on the Islamic dilemma, but yeah, give everyone a quick rundown of how you would be different from most of the Muslims that we're familiar with, because most of the familiar, like we occasionally interact with like an Ismaili Shia or something like that, but vast majority of Muslims we interact with are Sunni Muslims very frequently, if not Salafi, somewhere in that ballpark of same sources and things like that.
So one thing I would say, what I would recommend a YouTube channel that I think is really, really good in talking about Sufism is a man named Philip Holm. He does a lot of YouTube videos on it, and he does a lot of good work on it.
Is he a Sufi?
No.
Oh,
he's not a Muslim at all.
Explaining it. Okay.
He's not a Muslim at all. He likes to make music. But I mean, I think there are people who can explain things who may not be of a tradition, but they can represent it better than other people. Like our sister in the video did an interesting explanation of Islam where she said that the text was corrupted but never read it. I mean, that was a very fascinating approach.
Powerful.
But basically, Sufism, it comes from the word tasawwuf, and it's like this. I would say it's very akin to like Stoicism. It's this concept of, there's a concept in Arabic, and Giant Deuce, I'm sure know this, it's called tazkiyatun nafs, the purification of the self. So it's a lot about a person kind of purifying themselves and working on themselves. And it's not really, there's different forms of Sufism, so it's very hard to like break it down into one space. There's a lot of different levels. But it's actually very interesting because when you look at the New Testament, when I first read it, I was like, wow, this is very familiar to me. I was 18 when I read the New Testament for the first time in completion. I was like, wow, this sounds very familiar to the stuff that I understand, where you kind of have a spiritual master and there are students, and the students learn from the spiritual master. So I would say that's pretty much the kind of whole of it, is that you have a spiritual guide that helps you on your spiritual journey and goes through that. So some people might argue that Christ is like the ultimate Sufi, and that if you use that as your definition, but try to give it in a minute. That's kind of, I would say, the.
All right. So any of you aspiring Sufis out there who need a spiritual guide, you've got Issa here. And he's taking on students. Take some students on.
I'm a nobody, but thank you.
The Fish Got Nuke said, been seeing a lot of terrified posts from Muslims super worried about D. Wood and the Islamic dilemma. Keep it up. Yeah, we're going to. And this is just part of learning. If you have a position that's got some problems in it, then other people will call you on those. And hopefully you try to figure things out and come up with a better position. All right. So guys, what's that? Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, it's funny that sometimes when you have Christians talking a lot about a particular Muslim objection, it's because that's like all we hear. But it's not because people are coming to us and saying, "Hey, can you guys respond? Can you guys respond?" Like you probably see a ton of Christian channels responding to, "Where did Jesus say, 'I am God, worship me'?" Right? D. Zakir Naik, these guys kind of popularized that objection. And so it's not that Christians come to like Christian apologetics channels or apologist channels or Christian channels that deal with, addressing Muslims or objections to the faith. And they're like, oh, how do you respond to this? How do you respond to that? But because it's so popular, like we'll make up these we'll kind of make responses to the objections because that's what Muslims are saying. But when it comes to the Islamic dilemma, it's another dynamic. It's that Muslims are worried, and actually, John Fontana. I have a we have a nickname for him on our stream, but yeah, John Fontaine. He actually says in the stream that Muslims are confused. That's actually the lead up to the segment that I recommended to you that we watch, was because he's like, they're confused about this. There's a lot of confusion, and one of the Muslims interrupts him. He's like, "No, there's no confusion." No, and it's like because he's trying to like they want to save the faith. There's like this huge image. They want to save the image of Islam. Preserve the image of Islam.
And Fontana was like, "Yes, there is confusion."
And then you have like the narrator voice, and there was confusion. But this is like the dynamic is way different to when Muslims are responding to objections that really trouble the ummah and they have no way to respond, versus like we just hear the same thing from Muslims over and over again, so like we just have to respond to what they give us. But it's like a different kind of background to why we're addressing these things.
Absolutely. All right. So, all right, we'll take these. There's already a bunch of super chats here. All right, we'll burn through these super chats real quick and then jump into. I have two clips. One, I had like the first 35 minutes. We'll just kind of skim through that and get any. I think it was right after the 20-minute mark on the live stream, which is like the minute that I saw where someone called in. So we'll catch the beginning, then we'll kind of fast forward to the little part I saw and stuff, and then we'll see if that's interesting, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the part that Jai pointed out, where they're arguing, and they have, of course, the new Dawah Wars, Islamic Dilemma edition. It's going to be fun stuff. 3 days till Eshkatan. Why'd you put the cheeseburgers there, man? Anyway. Veer says, hey, D-Wood and all, what is everyone's streaming schedule? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. What is everyone's streaming schedule? I am working on compiling a TV guide for Muslims who want to call in, and I have a vision for 24/7 round-the-clock coverage for the gospel. That's something that we've actually been thinking about because we don't have any sort of official schedule. We know God Logic goes live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Giant DOC will be having a live stream on Saturday. We're gonna fill those in, but yeah, we will. We're gonna organize. We're gonna coordinate, and we're gonna make sure that there's a live stream going on every day, so that any Muslim who wants to call in and have a discussion, there will always be someone live in the evening. And then as time goes on and more people are doing live streams and live call-in shows and stuff like that, we'll try and fill in the gaps everywhere, so that maybe we eventually get to the point where there's always someone live all day, every day, for anyone who just says, you know what, I want to have a discussion right now. So that'd be the goal.
They started doing that like a really long time ago on Pal Talk, and in the Arabic section, it was a room. I think Father Zechariah Butros was one of the founders of this room. It's called In Jesus, All Things Have Become New, and they started running it in shifts. So you'd have some like mods come in and moderate and kind of take over as a speaker during this hour, and then another hour someone else would come, and and it still runs to this day. It's like they just have constantly rotating through people. It's like it's open 24/7. And it was the biggest room.
Pal Talk is still a thing?
Oh, I don't. I think that I see it on YouTube sometimes, like some of the streams, but I don't know if the app is still. I mean, it must be, I guess, if they're still doing it, but I don't have it. Yeah, but I see it on YouTube. Like I see it on YouTube where they're like streaming it or whatever. But that's kind of their idea, was like, yeah, let's just get it going 24/7, and this person will take this shift and this person, and it actually it's very successful. So yeah, hopefully, God willing, we'll have a TV guide. I like that idea, but yeah, that sounds good.
Veer says, God Logic and Fearless Truth got Monday through Saturday, 5 Eastern Standard Time locked. Yes, that's good. That's good. And again, we want to fill in the entire day eventually. What cute words will Issa, peace be upon him, use for D Wood today? Yeah, you've already used cute and a couple of others. Yeah, we'll see everyone. He's gonna check out a thesaurus. Muhammad's favorite dessert, tiramisu. Layers. Great to see Issa again. Oh, hi, David. Yeah, everyone loves Issa. That should tell you about Sufis. Everyone loves Sufis. David, Connor Tomlinson mentioned you last stream vis-a-vis the avalanche of apostasy. That's cool. Yeah, if someone wants to tell me what that was titled, I guess I could just go look up and see whatever he's posting recently. Quilla says, ex-Muslim used to be able to read Arabic as a kid without understanding. Left Islam at 14, 6 years ago. Now learning Arabic again. Advice on learning Arabic. DOC, you don't count because you grew up that way, but Jai, you actually had to learn it after.
I would say, well, it depends on like your dedication to it. If you really want to, go all in on it, there's different methods you can do. If you like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to read the Quran? Are you trying to speak to people? Because those are different goals, and you're gonna have to do different things. If you're trying to read books, it's one approach. If you're trying to talk to people, it's a whole other approach. So I'm guessing because you mentioned being able to read Arabic, so you you'd want to I'd look on. I mean, there's tons of stuff on YouTube you can look up, like people teaching you how to, if you're learning how to just read the script, you can just read the script, learn it like that, and just keep practicing daily, and grow your vocabulary. And I don't have any expert tips on it. What do you think?
Practice, I think.
Yeah, practice. Just keep practicing. There's like the saying, like how does it go?
The saying is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Oh yeah, that's that saying. Yeah.
The answer is practice.
A little, a lot. Yeah, a little, a lot. So in other words, if you practice like 10 minutes a day, that's better than doing like 2 hours every 2 weeks. Like if you just, 2 hours and you're only doing it every 2 weeks, that's not good for language learning.
Mm-hmm.
If you a lot, like, even if it's just 10 minutes every single day, it's way better than like
consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
And I would say watch TV, or if you want the Fusha, watch the news, or listen to the radio. They do it in like the
standard Arabic,
the standard formal Arabic, rather than dialect, if that's what you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have from Ida, super sticker. Thank you, Ida. Then we have, there are Muslims who say, this is a good one. There are Muslims who say, this is a good one for introduction. There are Muslims who say the Torah and Injil is not corrupt, but the interpretation, this is a minority position, by the way, but yes, I do see Muslims who say this. What's interesting is the position you're talking about right here is the position of the Quran and Muhammad. This is the position, what you're describing here is the position of the Quran and Muhammad, but it's a minority position of Muslims today. But it said, you say there are Muslims who say the Torah and Injil is not corrupt, but the interpretation of the text is corrupted. What do they mean by that? Are they talking about the translation? The statement doesn't make any sense. Well, that would be people who recognize that the Quran is affirming the scriptures in the possession of Jews and Christians, because that's what the Quran repeatedly says. The Quran never says that our scriptures are corrupted. The Quran says that we distort the scriptures with our we twist the scriptures with our tongues. And you have all sorts of claims in the Quran about us misinterpreting, misunderstanding, misrepresenting passages and so on. So what you're talking about is what I view as the official position of the Quran. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I think that's good.
That's good.
I think it's interesting because let's grant that, let's steel man and say that that's what the text is saying. How does the person know? And this is the weirdest thing that I've seen, because I started to learn Salafi theology because I didn't know it growing up. It wasn't something, I mean, I did see it on my purview, but I didn't like go deep into it. But there's this concept of al-wala wal-bara, this idea of loyalty and disavowal, which I've never heard of, because it's, calling people heretics and infidels was not something in my purview. I grew up with a lot of people who are all different kinds of faith. So it was an interesting thing. The thing is, when people point the finger, many fingers are pointed back at them. So if they're going to say, well, these people have a corrupted interpretation, well, how do you know your interpretation is right of the text, of their text and of your own text? You have to have a lot of ego and arrogance to take that position. And I think a lot of folks are saying, well, I can tell you what the text means. And I'm like, really? Like, if I give, like, let's say even the Quran, you take a chapter like Surah al-Masad or Lahab, it says, perished are the two hands of Abu Lahab, and, may he be perished. What does that mean? You need like an exegesis to kind of figure on a surface, because it's poetry. It's a poetic text. So how do you know what the text means? And it's like, I think there's a lot of arrogance that people have where they come in and they're like, I'm going to tell you your text is corrupted. I have no methodology to prove that position. I have no methodology to prove my position is correct. I'm just going to say it's correct because somebody told me it's correct. That's usually the kind of narrative that I have been seeing pretty consistently.
I'm new to the channel and I don't understand al-Zut jokes. Help me comprehend. Well, I don't know if this is a troll who wants us to talk about al-Zut or if it's someone who legitimately just came in here and was like, what is all these al-Zut jokes? I'll give you the serious answer, Caleb. The serious answer is there's some weird hadiths that say Muhammad went out into the desert with his companion Abdullah ibn Masud and told Ibn Masud to stand behind this line. And if he crossed the line, then he's doomed. And then it says Muhammad went a ways away, and then these men appeared, and they're naked, and he said they look like men of al-Zut. And then it says, it has this weird thing where it says they mounted him or rode him all night long, and he returned in pain and then passed out. And so lots of Muslims think this is about the jinn, and Muhammad was reading the Quran to the jinn and so on. And but it just sounds weird. And I started using it because I warned the dawah guys for years that if they keep just flat out lying, if you want to criticize the Bible, that's one thing. If you're just flat out making things up and lying and spreading the lies, you're crossing some serious lines. So I pointed out, guys, I'm not going to tell people to lie in response, but I will just go with the worst possible, and I mean the worst interpretation of what these texts sound like, what they're saying, and not go with something nicer and not be charitable with them. I said that. So if I'm talking to a nice Muslim, if I were talking to Issa, I would not be tossing around the Zut story. If I'm talking to one of the dawah guys and who always lies, and Rebecca was 3 years old and the Catholic encyclopedia says Mary was 12, and it's all like complete nonsense, then I would use some Zut issues with them. So that's the basic rundown.
Hey, David, we were thinking about opening up a perfume line for Muhammad and Zut because there's a background to this. So, Muhammad used to have his sweat collected. And,
Prophet sweat.
Yeah, exactly. We were thinking of all sorts of different titles and names for this perfume. So, for people who don't know, Muhammad would have his sweat collected, and they would bottle it up and mix it with their perfumes, and they said it makes the most beautiful fragrance. Sorry.
Yeah, we call it.
So we would call. Yeah. So yeah. Go ahead.
We call it oud Zut.
So we were thinking of all these different things, but the bottle is what would sell it, right? It would have to be like, yes.
Zut shaped.
It'd have to be like some kind of, I don't know, but we were just kind of running that idea since the stream.
Yeah.
And so
We need that. We need that, and we need my energy drink, Zut Energy.
Yeah.
I thought of calling it Zut Juice, but that sounds like something way creepier. So Zut Energy. But like, I actually looked it up. You can actually pitch your energy drink idea to a company that you can then market, as long as you can market it on your own. So we'll have to basically test the waters, so to speak, and find out how many people are interested in getting some Zut Energy. We'll make our own energy drink. But you can it's actually cool. Like the website.
The whole brand of
it says like what do you want in it, and what do you want it to and it's got a list of all these different things and how much caffeine you want it and all this stuff, and then we're gonna do it. I'll be sitting here every live stream sipping on Zut Energy, and we'll advertise our own stuff, and we will get rich because everyone on the planet is gonna want that Zut Energy that keeps you going all night long.
I wanted to say one thing you had brought up, but I think it's really important. When you're bringing up, what was his name? You said Rebecca, and Isaac, right?
Yeah.
If you're saying that, then you hurt yourself. Like, this is the thing I'm not understanding.
You're exactly correct. We wonder because your scriptures affirm this, and you're saying it, but you're saying it about a prophet, and you're saying that Abraham sent them to get this girl. So Abraham, and you're saying, you Muslims who are criticizing us. Why? Because we point out what your hadiths say about Muhammad and Aisha, and in response, you attack two people that you believe are prophets. Is that what you're pointing out, Issa?
Yeah, I think it's just really insane. Like even that in that conversation, I'm not sure if Jai and DOC covered it this time. I think maybe you did, but it was the part about the story of Lot, right? And
Yeah.
there, where Lot is assaulted. I'm like, you do realize this is a part of the, and then like they said, and you made a good point, Jai, where you're like, this is not a correction. It isn't, because this is my opinion. If you're saying that the Quran, and I don't even know where this is coming from, but the Quran corrects the Torah and the Gospels, well, the Quran's got to be a lot longer than 114 surahs. You would have to, it's got to be like the Talmud, where you have volumes and volumes of text. Like if you look at I actually have a cool thing that I want to show you at some point. I'm going to turn I might have to get up and show you because it's really cool, but it's like an ancient piece from like 300 years ago. But the way it would be is that this text, the Quran would have to be vastly larger. If you're going to make the argument of correction, it can't be this small. Like you can read the whole Quran in a day, right? If you're reading, like, let's say the Torah or even the New Testament, it might take you a bit longer to read these texts. But like the Quran is not a very long text, so it's really strange that folks are like, well, it's a correction. I'm like, a correction of what? Like, for example, I did an analysis of the prophet Joseph's story and the story from Bereshit or Genesis, and there's similarities between the stories, but there's differences too. Like the Torah is very specific. It gives us, the lineage. It gives us like the names of the folks who are around. It gives you the areas that you're in. It gives you a lot of kind of like historical information. When you read the Quran, it's kind of like a spiritual poetic narrative where there's lots of refrains. There's like the same constant refrain that keeps happening over and over again, and it kind of is much more it's more poetic. I think that's the term I would use. It doesn't give you that kind of stuff. It makes it like, really, to understand the story of Joseph, you'd have to read the Torah. You don't, who's Judah, who's Benjamin, who's Naphtali, who's Dan. You don't know who any of these people are. You don't know any of this narrative if you don't have the Torah narrative. So to say there's a correction, what would it be correcting? That there's no names of these brothers, that we don't know about the area, we don't have these specifics, like all the specifics of like the kind of the dream scenario, all of that stuff. You're just saying like that's a correction. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous proposition.
I was thinking of a new approach to that, right? Issa and David, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So in Islam, traditionally, as understood by Sunni Muslims, will be that silence is consent. So my thinking is that when the Quran is actually silent about something, it's actually not correcting it, it's actually agreeing to it, it's consenting to it. That's what I think. I don't know how they can play with that airtight logic. I don't know how they can play with that.
Yeah, it is disturbing where that quote comes from in the hadith, but yeah. Silence is consent. Yeah, these are all issues that our Muslim friends are going to have to sort of wrestle with. Steve here says, my understanding is that Isa was an Arabian folk character who was identified with Jesus about 100 years before Muhammad. What are your thoughts? It's been a while, but I remember looking into this like 10 or 15 years ago. Like where are they getting Isa? And basically no one knows, and there are multiple explanations. One is that Isa is like some sort of divine name. It's like Allah's name for Jesus, and so that's why the Quran uses it. Another is that it was made specifically for the meter of the Quran to fit as a parallel Musa and Isa and so on. I don't think that's correct because it only occurs a couple times. Then there's that it's a word that the version that was in Arabia, because keep in mind, Arab-speaking Christians don't call Jesus Isa. They call him Yasu. And so the question is, where's Isa coming from? But if he's hearing, if Muhammad's hearing this name from somewhere else where it came through a different language, like in Greek, Jesus' name is Jesus. And so that's kind of like Isa. And Injil's actually taken from the Greek. It's a transliteration of Evangelion. So that's a possibility. And then another possibility is because Isa is actually Arabic for Esau. That's the closest parallel, the closest thing that it would be transliterated from, Esau. And so there's an idea that Jews in Arabia were referring to Jesus mockingly as Esau, but that these were the people Muhammad was most frequently interacting with, and so they actually thought that was Muhammad actually thought this was his name. So you have a bunch of possibilities. There may be one or two others. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's tons and tons of theories on this, but one of them that's really interesting. One of the newer ones from I don't know what his exact position is. I think he's a archaeologist or linguist. Ahmed Jalad. He does like dig, so I think he's an archaeologist, but he does a lot of inscription work too. And so he found an inscription to someone that sounds exactly like Isa, like almost exactly. And what he theorizes is that there might have been a certain part of Arabia that was like when they were missionizing that area, that the Arabs had like a name for this, like for a deity named Isa. Like kind of like let's say you go to a group of people, like they have a name of a god called like Zeus or something like that. That's their name for God. And then when they become Christians, they just kind of use that same name for God. They keep calling him Zeus, even though it's Yahweh. And so he was theorizing that it's actually based on these inscriptions. We actually have evidence that it's like a pre-Islamic like deity. And when they became Christians, like so in that form of Arabic or whatever, they would have said it as like Isa instead of Yeshua. But anyway, it's a theory. But what's interesting is he actually has archaeological evidence to prove that this name actually did, or it could be linked to it actually. But there's so many different theories. I think it's really interesting, and Muslims have no idea, which is the most fascinating. In fact, when you get into that, you go into because sometimes Muslims, what they do is they try to Arabize words, like the word Injil. We all know, like you said, it comes from Greek, but sometimes they'll try to Arabize it and they'll try to find like a similar sounding root in Arabic to be like, but it doesn't work. Well, guess what? When you do that to the name Isa, it actually has to do with urine. I think like camel urine or something like. No, not camel. Horse urine.
Yeah.
Horse urine. And so I don't know. So some of the Muslim scholars theorize that it has something to do with horse urine, the name Jesus in Islam.
Interesting.
There's a lot to say about that. We should do a stream on that one day. Just go
No,
over all
it
the
would
theories.
also. I'm also thinking that would be a good video since I did look into it a long time ago. I was like, whoa, no one really knows, and there's just all these different explanations. It would be good to run through all the different explanations just to let people know what the issue is. All right. Still have multiple super chat. I'm going to go through these real quick. What's up, Issa? And then I'm gonna zoom through these so we can get to the video.
Sure. Quick. I just wanted to say that I think the third option you brought up, the Greek one, I think that's probably it's a very strong one just because you brought up Injil. I think that is a good argument. I think the Esau argument will be more hostile to like your standard Muslim position. So I think if a Muslim is to embrace one of the positions, I would say the translation from Greek. And I think some Muslims should have humility and say, look, there are borrowed words, like Firaun is a borrowed word. Isa, like all the Hebrew prophets' names, these are in Hebrew characters' names are, they're Hebrew names, and we should just kind of own that and be honest with that.
I just want to say, I know you don't want to spend too much time on this, but there is a response. If you're interested, I can offer that. It's up to you.
Maybe we should check it out. No, do you want to give it now? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick version. So what that Greek theory doesn't account for is names that we know for sure do come from Greek, like names. For example, we know that Elijah, Eliyahu, comes into Christian Arabic as Eliah, right? But in Greek, we know it's Elias. In the Quran, Elias. We know that Jonah, Hebrew Yonah, comes into Arabic through the Greek Yunus, Greek Yunus, right? So it maintains that final S, like in Moses, that final S. That lets us know this is the name that comes from Greek. That final S. So Jesus or Isus, it has that final S. The question is, where would that go? So how does the name Isa with the Greek origin, how does it account for dropping that S when it's maintained in these other names? And then there's like there's another really problem for any theory, which is that there's like an initial, like a very guttural letter called ayin, like a sound.
Ayin. Yeah, I know. I tried
yeah,
learning
yeah,
that.
well,
And
yeah, like
regular native English speakers can't say it.
Yeah, and so that's the first letter in Isa, right? And so the question is, how would you get that if it comes from the Greek? So there's a lot of different questions. And it's not definitive, but it's like there's a lot of different questions that different theories, like you'd have to weigh where the evidence goes. So I think it would be a really interesting video.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
That's fair.
Yeah, maybe we should all look into it and then have a discussion about it. Might be interesting. D-Wood, there's a so we'll just zoom through these real quick. D-Wood, there's a testimony on CBN News from an ex-Hamas wife and daughter of one of the founders who came to Christ. You should go through it with AP. Yeah, I saw that pop up, but I was traveling, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. But yeah, I'll be checking that out when I get a chance. Rabbi Issa, we love you, brother. He's not a rabbi. He's the Mahdi. Although the Mahdi is the rabbi because he is all the things from all the religions.
Sweet.
Stay cool, David. I have to. I can't do anything else. Found when Muslims tell me Bible was changed, asking them, tell me stories of the prophets without using a Bible. Convo stops in awkward silence. And that sounds like pretty much exactly what Issa was pointing out a few minutes ago. Salafis argue that congregational prayer in a masjid is mandatory. What are your thoughts? Could do it in Dargah instead. Not a Muslim myself. Curious. Nope. Any thoughts on that, Issa?
Well, it's interesting because there's different positions if even women should go to the masjid or not. Should women be praying in the masjid? There's arguments about that. Is there a certain kind of a conditionality for men to go? I would say that, from my understanding within the Salafi framework, it's very important for men to go to the masjid. But yeah, Dargah is an interesting thing too, because that's like very kind of South Asian Persian culture. And that's another important layer. I'm sure you all know about this too. It's that Islamic frameworks change based on the cultural frameworks you're in. If you go to South Asian Islam, things like music have a different space, and even polygamy. Remember we saw one of those videos where Mohammed Hijab was like, oh, the South Asian brothers, the South Asian people don't do polygamy. The newer ones that we've got into Salafi do, though. We're very happy for that. We want all the people to have lots of wives and lots of kids they can't take care of.
Smart. That's how they win.
So
That's how
bad.
they win. Mm-hmm.
Have lots of kids you can't take care of. Wow, what a great person you are. I don't know.
Smart. Laura Loomer and Amy Meck from Rare got Islamist Sami Hamid deported. He can tell his buddies that it's okay because together they are one man. Muhammad's hadith. Yeah, I haven't really looked into it. I saw that story. Spent an hour debating a white Muslim who was claiming the word Islam means peace. He didn't know I spoke Arabic. White people. No offense, David. Nope. No offense taken. You can complain about white people all day long. Ida says, shortly and basically, David al-Zurad them. The Dawah guys. We're about to even more. Zutergy, of course, as far as, yeah, you could call Zut energy Zutergy, 5 hours Zut. Oh, so we're getting the 5 hours Zut. Where can I invest in de Zut and Zut Energy? That sounds like an excellent investment opportunity. Oh, yeah. That's going to be the Red Bull's going to be like a joke. Going to go out of business. Zut Juice invigorates you with the power of 30 big black men. That's the story. All right, everyone. Ready to jump into this video? Let's go ahead and check this out. Here we go. This is I clicked on it somewhere in the beginning after their music cut out. But let's see.
Dr. Imran, so last stream we had, we were discussing this supposed Islamic Muslim dilemma. I think it's a dead horse being flogged again. I think the Christians seem to be.
Did he say doctor? Did he say Dr. Imran? Okay, that's good.
Quite repetitive, really, in all picking the same topic and then thrashing it to kingdom come, basically. I find that in some ways we are being led up a garden path by the Christians who want to make us busy discussing certain things and actually negate the real conversation and the important conversation about who is Allah, what is God, who is God? The fundamental question.
Hang on. Did he just say that the reason we're we're pushing the Islamic dilemma is to avoid talking about God?
Yeah. That's what he said. And it also reminded me of that song. I don't know if it was Anthony Rogers or one of those maybe Sal or Spinning Remixes, one of those guys.
Where is Allah?
Yeah, where is Allah? What is Allah? That is a very good question.
Mhm.
So this guy, we could cut him and add him into the song.
Trust me, you don't want us to talk about what and where is Allah.
Yeah.
Because that will just make you a heretic or a unbeliever if you go down at least the Sunni traditional understanding.
Yeah. So Abbas, the Islamic dilemma is one issue that we're interested in, but we think it's a serious problem for you guys. So basically the gist would be this. This is connected to everything. So if we talk about what God is, if you're asking what God is according to the Quran, the question is whether we should take the Quran as actual revelation from God so that we would take it seriously as giving us revelation from God. If so, then we have to know whether we should take the Quran seriously as revelation from God, or we just, we use the Bible or we use natural theology or something like that, but we would not use the Quran as a source of revelation if we don't think it's revelation. And one of the things that we've noticed is you guys always attack our book, but your book doesn't say the things that you say. And so we've got this issue here where your scriptures are affirming our scriptures, and our scriptures seem to be saying different things about God. Some of the same things, but some different things. And so what do you say when our book says something different about God from your book? You say, well, our book's been corrupted. And we point out, well, there's a problem here because your book never says that our book's been corrupted. It always affirms the inspiration and the preservation and the authority of our book. And so we're pointing out that you're the ones who have an issue here that you are trying to address, and you're doing a pretty terrible job of it. And you're all giving us different answers on these things. But if we're going to take your scripture seriously when it talks about God, then you guys need to solve this mystery for us. And the mystery is your Quran is affirming our scriptures, but apparently contradicting our scriptures on some issues when it comes to God. So what are you guys going to do? And you just keep saying our book's been corrupted, and then you keep making things up. And that's not good enough. So that's the problem. That's why we're bringing it up. It's, hey, let's talk about God. Hey, look, Tawheed, you have to do it. And why should we take this seriously as revelation? Because it's revelation from God. And then we ask you some basic questions and you don't answer them. So that's kind of the reason we're bringing this up. But I have to say, yeah, we've all been using this argument, and you guys are giving terrible responses. But let's see. Maybe you've got something here.
Well, I want to say one.
What's up?
If it's cool, if I just add one quick thing about that. I think the problem is it sounds like a deflection. The gentleman is basically saying, hey, I don't really want to address this issue, so let's talk about God. I'm like, brother, you have no idea what God is either. So like you trying to bring up God as your argument, you going to explain how God functions? Like, do you have some great analysis of that? I think that's strange. And usually what I feel is it's kind of like a manipulative tactic to go and say, look, we have one God, you have three gods. Look how terrible your religion is. You've got three gods. And I'm like, this is just, it's very like infantile. It's like an infantile tactic. Like it's some brilliant maneuver to attack Christianity. Because Christianity has a complex notion of what God is, you're going to just say, well, it's false because my notion is true. Well, I mean, this is my problem. You can't throw stones from glass houses, because once you throw stones from glass houses, people can throw stones back at you and your house will crumble. So I'm just like, you should have some humility. That's I think my catchphrase, have some humility.
Yeah, and basically give us a coherent response to the Islamic dilemma. some sort of coherent response to the Islamic dilemma wouldn't make the Quran true. But we have a good reason to think that as you guys are reading it, you have a serious problem here, and that we're not going to be taking your book seriously until you deal with this problem. And you're not dealing with the problem. And when we bring it up, you're like, oh, they're just trying to deflect because of this. All right, we'll see.
Sometimes those questions are not really being dealt with. I think the other thing is that to me, it seems like a ploy in a way where as long as we keep the Muslims busy discussing these things, then they're not going to talk about the Bible. They're not going to talk about Christianity.
Yeah, we're not talking about the Bible or Christianity, guys. All we ever talk about is the Islamic dilemma, and we never talk about the Bible or Christianity because all we talk is about the Islamic dilemma. Isn't it amazing that after years of them running from this argument, we finally get them to pay attention to it, and it's, oh, they're just trying to deflect from everything. It's all they've ever talked about. Come on.
And so then we don't have to defend it.
What's that?
You know.
No,
but what's your thoughts
Oh, yeah.
on this?
Which is funny because they keep saying Islam is the truth. Come, let's talk about Islam. And then when we do, they're like, well,
Why can't we talk about the
we
Bible?
don't want to talk about that, though.
Yeah, and I have to point out, I mean, the fact that this dude's grinning while he says this, all we've heard from dawah guys for decades is your Bible's been corrupted, your Bible's been corrupted, your Bible's been corrupted, your Bible's been corrupted. Why weren't you just talking about God? Were you just saying the Bible's been corrupted to avoid talking about God? You guys are the ones who are bringing up Bible's been corrupted, Bible's been corrupted, Bible's been corrupted. Why? Because it contradicts what your book says. And then so it's kind of relevant to that discussion to say, if you're saying our book's been corrupted and your God says the opposite, you've got a problem here. And then we point out that you have a problem. And what do you do? Oh, they're just trying to keep us from talking about God and talking about Christianity. You brought it up. You brought the issue up. You brought up the textual corruption of the Bible because it contradicts your book. We're responding. We're pointing. I've said this before, Abbas, but imagine we're preaching Christianity, right? If we're preaching Christianity, we say, hey, you should believe in Jesus because Jesus rose from the dead. And Jesus performed all these miracles, and then he rose from the dead, so you should believe in him. If your response to that claim was, well, Jesus couldn't have performed miracles or risen from the dead because miracles don't occur, my response would not be a defense of miracles or a defense of Jesus' resurrection. My response would be, how are you saying that as a Muslim? That does not seem to line up with your scriptures. In other words, I'd be pointing out that you're contradicting your own scriptures. Before we give any sort of defense of the resurrection, before we were to give any sort of defense of miracles or the resurrection, I would want you to address that issue that you're contradicting what your scriptures clearly say. Your scriptures affirm miracles. So that's kind of the issue here. You're attacking our book and saying, haha, and we're pointing, it's the same thing. You shouldn't be using that objection if you're a Muslim. You shouldn't be saying Bible's been corrupted if it contradicts your book. So you should be trying to show us that what you're saying doesn't contradict your book. And you guys are just doing a terrible job of it and trying to deflect like you are now.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it's
He agrees with me. See,
it's basically a straw man, and it was set up to really.
Do you know what a straw man is, Doctor?
Is that a doctor?
Yeah, he's definitely not a doctor of philosophy.
You're definitely
yeah,
not.
Even educated people know what a straw. That's why I say, is he a doctor? It's very embarrassing.
Well, he's got all those books behind him, so he's got a.
But he's never read it. Also, Sheikh Othman ibn Fibn has lots of books
I'm
behind
just
him.
joking around. Yeah.
It's not good look.
I think you're right. I think it's fascinating that people use these logical fallacies as it's like a shield to kind of to deflect from what's actually being there, and saying, if I just say straw man, it sounds like it's nice, it sounds like it's right. I can just use these fancy words, and if I don't really explore what they mean, I wanted to tell you something from before too. I saw, what's his name, not Dean over Dunya. What is the
Dean response?
Dean responds. Dean responds, and Jake Bracacella. They bring up these high philosophical arguments. It just, I feel like when people talk like that, it's kind of an insecurity complex. When you start talking really fancy, and it's like fortressing, right? You're doing this stuff because you want to sound smart, but you're not actually smart. And so people hear it and they're like, whoa, dude, you're so
Mhm.
smart. You're so intelligent. You know so much stuff. And then you have someone like you, and and Jai and DOC who know the stuff, and then they come in. Like, my favorite is like, there was one conversation I saw with Avery, and it was a Palestinian Muslim gentleman. And he's like, I can show you the Quran. Arabic is perfect in the Quran, and everything's perfect. And then Avery's like, can I bring a Christian Arabic speaker up here? Oh, no, they're going to deceive you. And I'm like, why? Why would they deceive you? I thought that was such an interesting maneuver. It's like, you're putting up this litmus test, whatever it is. You can call it straw man, whatever, and say, oh, Arabic, gatekeeping, all of these types of things. And then you're like, when we actually explore it and we test it, we see that it might be not exactly accurate, and it might be a little bit problematic,
Yeah. So, Dr. Imran, a straw man is when you misrepresent a position and then attack your own misrepresentation of the position instead of attacking the actual position. We're quoting verses of the Quran and going with the most obvious meaning of them, and we're challenging you to come up with any alternative that actually makes sense of those verses, and you just basically keep saying Allah means the opposite of what he says. And we're pointing out that's not what Allah says. You're saying, oh, just believe in the parts that line up with Islam. And then, Surah 2, verse 85 says, if you only believe in parts and don't believe in all of it, I'll send you to hell. You're saying you don't have the book, but Allah says we have it. You say we're just supposed to go to the Quran. Allah tells Jews to judge by the Torah and Christians to judge by the gospel. We're pointing these things out, and you keep telling us that Allah means the opposite of what he says, and you don't realize how this impacts us taking your book seriously. Like if we take you serious, we're not talking about your book now. If we take you seriously, we have to conclude that Allah is the worst communicator ever. He keeps saying the opposite of what he means. Okay, why would we then take him seriously when we talk about the God you believe in? When we talk about the theology of the Quran? If Allah can't say what he means, why would we take it seriously? Anything. And you're giving us just terrible, terrible, terrible responses. We're telling you we need a good response or we're not taking it seriously. And you do this. Oh, it's a straw man. Oh, you've been refuted.
Have a point of discussion. And as long as you know very basic things like what is the Injil.
What? Wait, he knows what the Injil is?
That's basic?
Whoa, I would love to know.
Apparently, it's basic, meaning all Muslims should know what it is.
Okay.
Wow.
As long as you know what the Injil is. Well, that's what we've been asking like 50,000 times a day for the past couple of years. What's the Injil?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I already know what his position will be. Once you know that the Injil is a book given to Jesus, they don't have it. That's the problem, dude. Allah says we have it. And he tells us to judge by it, and he says we're reading it. And so if you're saying it's only a book given to Jesus and we don't have it, Allah says we have it, and we're not reading it because we're not reading a book that was just given to Jesus, and Allah says we're reading it and we're not reading it, and we don't have it, and yet Allah tells us to judge by it, and we can't judge by it because we don't have it. That's what we're pointing out. The Quran doesn't just say the Injil is a book given to Jesus. The Quran says the Injil is a book given to Jesus, and Christians have it, and Christians read it, and Christians have to judge by it, and Christians have no ground to stand upon unless we're standing upon it. And you're saying, oh, the Quran only says this one thing. That's what we're pointing out. It doesn't just say one thing. It says this, 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 and this, and you're pretending it only says one thing, and you're making no sense of the rest of what it says. That's a problem. You do not have a coherent position on this. Stop acting like you do, or come up with one.
And you would need a source text. If you're saying that this happened, well, where's the source text for that? Do you have like a piece of manuscript you can show us? Is there a Birmingham manuscript that you can show us that has these words on it? I don't know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
How Muslims define it.
It's how all Muslims over. Define what did he just say? How Muslims define it? Yeah, that's the point. You guys define it as just a book given to Jesus that Christians don't have, and that's not how Allah defines it. That's the point. You guys have to define it in a way that contradicts what Allah says, and you don't see the problem. Oh, gosh. We might have to really skim. If these guys are just going to say something that causes me to interrupt every 5 seconds because, okay, we'll let this go a little more. Look, this is just the introduction. Just wanted to get their introductory thoughts on the topic and stuff like that. Then we'll fast forward a bit.
It's all over.
It's all. Once you know
It's
how
all
Muslim,
over
once you know how Muslims like us define it in a way that completely contradicts what our book says, then you'll see. It's done.
Well, it's over. Time to go. Time to pack our bags. End the stream. It's over.
And here's what's amazing: they can't even agree on that, on what the Injil is. So you go to John Fontaine. Oh yes, it's a book Christians don't have. You go to someone else. Oh yeah, the Christians do have it, but it's been changed. And this is amazing.
It doesn't matter where else you're going to go. It's just all over.
Yeah, just as long as we don't go to what Allah and Muhammad say.
Yeah.
And what happens is that they're rehashing this and a lot of theatric.
We're rehashing and using theatrics. Let me correct you. Let me correct you. We're reading to you what Allah says and pointing out that it does not agree with you. That's what we're doing. That's all we do.
And now there are some more responsible Christians who are coming on and saying,
"Oh, nice.
Actually, this is not a good argument, guys." And
where,
you know,
if you show us a Christian who says this is not a good argument, it's a Christian who doesn't understand the argument and doesn't understand the Quran.
You're misrepresenting the Muslim position, and you shouldn't really be using this.
Oh, by the way, I know there are. Chris had a guy. I didn't watch it, but Chris had a guy who apparently says that, and he doesn't understand the argument. He doesn't understand what it says, and he doesn't understand what the Quran says.
And then when you hear him,
what's up?
And then when you hear that same guy articulate his argument, it's the Islamic dilemma, and everyone who hears it is like, "Hey, you know that's the Islamic dilemma, right?"
Yep.
So even the guy who critiques it, it's like he's actually using the Islamic dilemma.
Yeah, he does. He just uses it from the Torah. I know that guy came to when we recorded an Islam series at Turning Point, he was tagging along with someone, and he ended up in a discussion with Avery for a while, and Avery kept saying, "That's the Islamic dilemma." And the guy's going, "No, the Islamic dilemma is something that David Wood came up with." And Avery's like, "No, David Wood." And I'll tell you right now, no, I did not come up with the Islamic dilemma. I tweaked some.
I just think it's hilarious that that's the objection. It's like, it's not what he's saying or the articulation of it. It's like, no, David Wood came up with that, so I can't be using it because David Wood came up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, hang on. Let me find it, because this was actually hilarious, right? So Avery kept telling him that's the Islamic dilemma, and the guy kept saying, no, the Islamic dilemma is one, it's an argument that David Wood came up with, and two, he was saying that David Wood is trademarked that name, and so don't use that name. And so
so it's just about the name.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I had to go down to what we called it. So he said, okay, we're going to need, this is afterwards when Avery was explaining the conversation that he had. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll come up with a different name for his Islamic dilemma, because it's just the Islamic dilemma, but running with the Torah. And I pointed out, you can run the Islamic dilemma by just saying the Bible, or you can say the Jewish and Christian scriptures, or you can just run it with the Injil, you can just run it with the Torah, you can run it with, if they try to appeal to some other gospel, like the Arabic infancy gospel, guess what? None of those line up with Islam. So you can run it with anything. But he doesn't want to call it the Islamic dilemma, even though it's one version of the Islamic dilemma. He doesn't like, he thinks I have somehow trademarked this. No, it existed long before I started using it. I popularized it. That's what happened. But yeah, so we came up with a name for his version, and we're calling it the Muslim difficult decision between two alternatives. It's the Muslim. So yeah, you can call his version the Muslim difficult decision between two alternatives, and therefore you won't have to worry about any sort of trademark infringement there.
That's hilarious. But notice that Dr. Imran, he always has to go to a Christian for authority to say, oh, even another Christian is telling them. I think they inherited this from Allah when he told Muhammad to go to people of the book for authority.
Right.
He's not pointing to a Muslim.
Yeah,
that is good. So you are following a good pattern here, Imran. You're going to Christians, but you got to go to Christians who actually understand the arguments and don't just hate David Wood and despise everything he does. That would help you. But I mean, think here. Think if you're going to say, just go to here's a Christian who disagrees. Okay, great. I can find Muslims who disagree with everything you're saying, right? I can find Muslims who will disagree with your response to the Islamic dilemma. So following your reasoning, I could say, they say this is the response, but here's another one who disagrees with them. Therefore, this is a bad response. No, you have to examine the arguments. You have to examine the arguments and see who's got the best case. That's what you do. You don't just say someone said it. I mean, there are Muslims who admit that we're right.
Yeah.
Abdullah Saeed is a professor of Quranic studies at the University of Melbourne. He says the Quran is affirming the Bible, and therefore Muslims should stop disrespecting the text of the Bible. Yeah. I don't know what he does with the contradictions and stuff, but there are Muslims who say we're right. What's that?
No, it's just like, so we're going to see that happening. We're going to see that unfold in real time when they actually have the two different positions in front of everybody. And we're going to see, like we pointed out at the beginning, which is that if you take a little bit from this one and a little bit from that one, you get the Islamic dilemma. Like they're answering different questions.
Yep.
But if you take like what one guy says in one area and then one guy says in the other area, you get the Islamic dilemma. So what they're saying is, if what they're saying is that both responses work, they can't, because combined you create the Islamic dilemma all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's and I don't know what their discussion is going to be, but it's very easy. It's very easy. Just put it together from the standard response to the Islamic dilemma that we get. Yes, it is talking about the Torah and the gospel that Christians have. That's what the Quran is pointing to our book. But all these verses that sound like it's affirming the preservation and authority of our book, they're actually saying that our book has been corrupted. So yes, it's talking about our book, the book that we have, but it's not affirming the preservation and authority of the book that we have. So yes, it's talking about the book, thumbs up on book that we have, but thumbs down on saying that it's preserved and authoritative. Then you go to John Fontaine, he says, no, these verses are affirming the preservation and authority of the Torah and the gospel, but it's talking about a different Torah and gospel. It's not saying that it's not talking about the book that we have. So thumbs up on the Quran affirming inspiration, preservation, and authority, no corruption of the Torah and the gospel. Thumbs down on whether it's talking about what we actually have. So that's the point. You put both those together, one side saying, yes, it is talking about the book that we have, but no on what the Quran no on the Quran affirming the preservation and authority. You go to the other guy, yes, thumbs up on preservation and authority, but you put them together and you got the Islamic dilemma. And they can't even agree. Weird stuff.
So far as to say that maybe the Christians should apologize for some of the behavior they've shown in some of their interactions.
Yeah, shame on you for reading the Quran and pretending that Allah means what he says.
It's which is heartening, because I think that the way the discussions happen now, a lot of it makes you feel, is the conversation worth having?
Hang on. Before, I know, Issa, you want to say something, but I just have to wonder, Giant DOC. So these two guys are here, and eventually, by the time we get to the section that Jai, that you sent me, there's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people involved. Why aren't they? Don't we repeatedly go live and offer them an opportunity to tell us what the Quran is actually saying and say we'll go through these verses?
Absolutely, yeah.
So hold up.
But
Wait a minute. Wait. Yeah, didn't we do like 5 or 6? Didn't we do like 5 or 6? And God Logic has done way more, but we did like 5 or 6 just on God Logic channel, where we're all there inviting anyone to call in and explain what the Quran is saying, explain these verses in a way that makes sense. None of these guys wanted to show up. And then we've been doing live streams on your channel. No one wants to show up. They can call in. They don't. So why are they having this discussion among themselves and patting themselves on the back? But apparently they can't even agree. But patting themselves on the back. Yeah, what a dumb argument. And we give them every opportunity. Then show us it's a dumb argument. Show us. One, if you want, guys, Abbas, Imran, if you want formal debate, we agree. We accept. Pick your opponent. We're all willing. Or if you want to just call in and have a friendly discussion, every opportunity. Instead, you guys want to talk amongst yourselves and pat yourselves on the back, and then you end up contradicting each other and proving our point. Good.
Yeah,
good.
And they do like the Yasser Qadhi thing where they're like, join my class or talk to me in private. That's what so when it gets to the point where they start really getting to the disagreements, they're like, oh, let's take it to private. But wait, I thought it's such a simple, like it's already over. All you need to do is understand the Injil, then it's over. So why do they need to go hide in private and they can't discuss these things in front of the public eye? By the way, Muslims who are watching, which is the 99% of their audience, they're not privy. They don't have those. They're not able to sit in those conversations and know what's happening like behind the scenes. And
But why make it secret?
yeah, like if that's the answer, if you guys have the answer, then why don't you take it? Why don't you take it to the public and just tell everybody about it? Why do you even hide it from your own Muslim people?
Yeah, we got to take your classes. What were you saying, Issa?
No problem. What I wanted to add as well is he kind of is offended that Christians are making accusations against Islamic sources. I'm like, do you not do the same? Do you not attack the Bible and say it's corrupted
all day, every day?
I'm in shock when I see that. Like I saw on that show on the the debate between the women, and they're like, and I see this in general. It's like, why are you attacking us? And I'm like, because you're attacking them. What do you think is going to happen? And in fact, we talked about this. That's an injunction in the Quran. You're not even supposed to attack others' gods, because then your God will be attacked. And so it's like a weird, bizarre situation. But like, I think people just they want to have their cake and eat it too. And it's just very. I just found that strange, where he's like, how dare the Christian accuse my situation, my tradition? And I'm like, you're attacking their tradition. So, that's just kind of what you yield. You yield what you sow, right? You reap what you sow.
Yep. So Abbas and Imran.
They kind of give the impression that like they're like these reasonable guys who are like, we don't want to like, get into these mud fights and get into like these, insult battles. Well, I was fast forwarding through this, and there was a part where I got to where that guy, the so-called doctor, he's debating with some Christian who calls in, and it was just complete, just like the guy is terrible, but he interrupts so often. Like he gives the impression he's so respectful and so like we don't want you to stoop to those levels. But when you hear him actually engage with a Christian, it's like the guy wouldn't let him get a word in, and then he was actually straw manning. He's like, well, how do you accept the New Testament and the Old Testament? They contradict. And then every time the Christian would try to answer one of the objections, he'd be like, oh, I don't care about the Christian view. You didn't ask me about the Muslim view. I don't care about the Christian view. And it was just really terrible discussion, really terrible decorum and just like behavior. So the guy's acting right now like he's like this like really like respectable debater who like doesn't get into these kind of like, oh, I'm not one of those types of dawah guys. He's worse.
That's interesting, because I was thinking while watching this, like, hey, these guys seem at least nice. They don't, they're completely misrepresenting things, but at least they're calm and nice apparently. And you're saying not when they actually talk to a Christian.
Exactly. Yep.
Interesting.
There's no sincerity there. So
who said that? Do you know who said that?
Yeah, I'll find the video for you, inshallah. Let me just. It was posted. I was just actually looking for it whilst you were talking.
They're trying to find that.
So I'll find it, inshallah. Now.
Trying to find what?
They're trying to find that pastor. The one who doesn't like to use the Islamic Dilemma term, but he uses the Islamic
Muslim difficulty.
Yeah. They're like, let's find that guy. We're gonna get him on our channel.
Jai, did you watch this?
No. I'm just saying that's what he said. He just said
no. I'm saying because I'm thinking about fast forwarding to.
Oh no,
something.
I didn't watch this. No.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like it's as if like if there are certain statements in the Bible that were widely agreed upon by Jesus, by the companions of Jesus, and by the generations that came after that, and it could be established, but obviously it isn't. But if it could be established that those words actually were preserved, in other words, those interpretations of those texts were preserved, it would be tantamount to a Muslim saying, no, you need to reanalyze those texts and actually see them from our angle. And that's never going to be acceptable to a Christian, right? A Christian is
wait.
You have Muslims doing you're arguing with guys. This is
one Muslims do that all the time. That's what you're going to point out, right?
But the thing is, it's like he's saying Christians are guilty of this doing this to Muslims, but it's other Muslims like John Fontaine and his group. They're the ones who are arguing against their view, and so they can't take they're trying to pit the Quran against the companions and pit them against the scholars. John Fontaine's position is that no, this is the position of the scholars, this is the position of the companions, and so it's you. What is his name? Abbas. It's you. You're the one who's actually twisting things. You're the one who's getting things wrong.
Yeah. So
not the Christians.
Yeah. So everyone, he just said that us pointing out what the Quran says and saying, hey, you guys, what you're saying does not line up with the Quran. This would be like Muslims going to Christians if we had actual statements of Jesus, which we can't defend, even though the Quran says we have the Injil. This would be like us having statements of Jesus and understanding those and agreeing on what they mean, and then Muslims coming along and saying, "Ha ha, you don't understand what they actually mean." If you wanted an actual parallel, Abbas, if you wanted an actual parallel, imagine Jesus giving a bunch of completely crystal clear statements, and then we say that he means the exact opposite of what he says in all these statements, and you guys show up and say, hey, you're being very disrespectful to Jesus because he's saying this and you're saying he means the opposite. That would be the parallel. If we were saying, here are all the things that Jesus said, and we're saying he means the exact opposite, and you come along as Muslims and say, no, that's not what he's saying. You guys are completely contradicting him. That would be the parallel. But that's what's actually going on, Abbas, is you guys are quoting the Quran, which says the exact opposite of what you guys are saying it means. And we're saying, if Allah means what you say and he says it the opposite, it sounds like you're telling us he has like some sort of cosmic Tourette syndrome and he just blurts things out and he doesn't mean them. That's what it sounds like you're saying. We're saying, wow, we actually have more respect for the Quran than you do, if that's how you're treating it. So yeah, I have to say that was a terrible, terrible response. I'm going to fast forward because so Imran disappeared apparently. Oh, hey, we got it.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, that's the dude. Hey, I know that the other dude is cool. The other dude is cool. The guy on top, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean here, but he's one of those guys who thinks here's what I think is the correct approach, and therefore it's the only approach. Dude, it's never going to work. You might get Muslims quoting you, and you might think, wow, I'm really making a difference. Muslims are using my video. They're using you because you're useful to them. You're useful in responding to the Islamic dilemma when they can't. And so that they can just say, look, here's a Christian who doesn't understand the argument and doesn't understand the position and just doesn't like David Wood. And he says the argument's bad. Ha ha! That's how they're using you. Anyway, never been a fan of here's my approach and this is the only approach and everyone else has it wrong. Guess what? There are all kinds of different people in the world and all sorts of different valid approaches out there.
Yep.
Tell me if you can hear it.
Come on, play the video, man.
No.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Oh my goodness. They don't know how to play the audio? Hold on.
By the way, those guys have like 500K subs too, and they don't even know how to play videos on stream.
How do you guys not know how to play videos?
We can't hear that either. Okay, that's funny.
Did they figure it out? Because I don't think I've actually heard this guy. I haven't seen this clip. Did they play it? Okay.
I don't know.
Did they figure it out?
To hear it.
So it says before presenting a screen. Hold on.
Oh, they're looking up instructions. These guys are live streamers?
It's like these are like when you're helping your grandma out with like, you know, how to text them.
Which button should I press?
Well, it's kind of funny because I mean, I notoriously do not know how to use this program, but I know how to play audio.
Muslims online.
Oh, here we go. Hang on. They figured it out, guys. They figured out the mystery. All right, here we go.
Ask Annette to remove.
Here we go. All right.
What is the Islamic dilemma?
The Quran confirms the Bible, but when we go to the Bible, then it contradicts the Quran. So therefore, the Quran is false. Obviously, it was developed by David Wood originally.
It was developed by David Wood originally? No, it was not.
He's encouraging all apologists who are engaging Muslims online to get very much mainstream. I would say they've made mistakes in their argumentation. When we're talking about Injil, we have to define Injil according to the Quranic definition. But
No way! Oh,
We didn't know that.
wow. So wait. So the
Shocker.
guy, Dr. Imran, who said was he getting this from this guy when he's like, it's over once you define the word Injil according to the Quran, it's over. I think he was getting it from this guy. Because that's what he says.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
man, this is my first time hearing this clip, and yeah, okay.
yeah, and before maybe he's gonna get things right. Yeah, we do need to define it according to what the Quran says. If you do that, it's automatically incoherent. It is an automatically incoherent position because the Quran says that the Injil is a book given to Jesus and that Christians have it and that Christians have to judge by it. So it says a bunch of things. It says we have it, we're reading it. So what is that? We don't have a book that was handed to Jesus. We don't judge by a book that was handed to Jesus. So if that, I mean, I brought this up with John Fontaine. If that's what it's saying, then the Quran is already wrong and completely incoherent. So what I did with John Fontaine, which he didn't understand, is I said, the only way you can make sense of this is in the exact same way that Christians use the word gospel, right? We say Jesus went out preaching the gospel. That refers to Jesus preaching. But if you're referring to a book, then that would be what? That would not be a book that Jesus wrote down or something like that. It has to be something that was written down by someone. And Allah says we have it. So Allah is saying we have a book that's written down and so on. So you would have to say, otherwise it's done from the beginning. It's done just by saying what the Quran says. So anyway, try and get your minds around this. I'm talking to this guy. I don't know what his name is. It says Christian pastor. If the word, I mean, my goodness, it's like the word book in the Quran. The word book can mean all kinds of things in the Quran, right? It can mean some sort of heavenly book. It can refer to the Quran. It can refer to the Torah. It can refer to all kinds of things. You have to see what it's saying, right? The word gospel, which in Greek is evangelion and ends up in Arabic, that can be used in different ways as well. It can be used to refer to the message that Jesus is preaching. It can also be used to refer to a book. So if you want the Quran to make sense at all on this issue, then when it talks about Jesus having the gospel, it's Jesus preaching the gospel. But if you're talking about us having a book, it has to be a book that we have, right? If Allah says we have it, it's got to be a book that we have. If Allah says we're reading it and it's written down, that means it's a text, right? So if you're saying that, then it is saying that we have it. And we can run the Islamic Dilemma. So I think this dude fell for some bad dawah. This is amazing. This guy fell for bad dawah. He didn't understand the argument. He thinks I invented it. So he has no clue about how the argument even works. And he fell for what some dawah guys said. And then dawah guys use him after he's been fed some dawah nonsense.
It's full circle. Guy gets convinced by dawah guys why the Islamic Dilemma doesn't work. Then he propagates why the Islamic Dilemma doesn't work because of what the dawah guys tell him, and then circles back around. The dawah guys now use him as a tool, as a reference point after he fell for their propaganda. So you've made this kind of analogy before, but if you were to create your own book and you were to state that the origins of the Quran are, I don't forget what you actually said, but like let's just make something up now. Like there's some aliens in outer space who bring the Quran down to not Muhammad, but someone named Muhammad or something like that. And you're like, okay, that's the origins of the Quran. Some aliens came down to Muhammad, and that's the origins of it. So Muslims could outright reject your book because you could say, okay, you don't know, that's not the origins of the Quran story. But then you go on in your book and you elsewhere say, this is what the Quran says. This is what the Quran says. Judge by the Quran. Judge by the Quran. A Muslim wouldn't be out of line to say, well, I can go by those parts and just see, okay, what does the Quran say on these topics? Try to kind of run, what we would say is the Islamic Dilemma, but with your book and the Quran instead of the Bible with the Quran. That's fair game. And so that's all we're doing. We're playing with what, we're playing within the rules of the game. And this is what Islam says, that the book is the Injil is the one that existed in their hands, in the presence of the people in Muhammad's time. We know exactly what that looked like. Mm-hmm. It's not some, contrary to what John Fontana wants us to believe, it's not some phantom book that just popped in and out of existence like 3 or 4 times. No, we know what it looked like. Like you said, it was written. People were reciting it according to the Quran. They were reading it according to the Quran. And so the fact that it gets the origin story wrong that's an argument against Islam, but not against the Islamic Dilemma, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just want to point out that the Quran talks about Christians reading the gospel and finding Muhammad written down and the gospel that's with us. When we ask Muslims, where's that? They go, what? Oh, it's right here in the Gospel of John. It's right. So they don't appeal to some book that we don't have. They appeal to what we have, which these bunch of hypocrites, right? It's when it's convenient for them. Of course, it's talking about the book that you have. Yes, and here's this prophecy about Muhammad. And then you have a Christian here who bought some dawah nonsense. No, it's not talking about the book you have. Okay, and these guys are agreeing with it. Oh, great point, guys. Not talking about a book that they have. Okay, then one of your two main arguments, well, no, both of your main arguments for why Jews and Christians should believe in the Quran just went bye-bye. It's not talking about a book that we have when Allah says that the reason we should believe in the Quran is because it's affirming the book that we have, but you're saying it's not affirming the book that we have. And the other reason is we find Muhammad mentioned in our book, and you guys come up with all sorts of arguments from the Gospels, and you're saying, but it's not talking about the Gospels. It's talking about something else. And you don't realize the damage you're doing. And then you got a Christian, well, the Christian got it right. And he doesn't understand the argument at all. Silly.
Christians, apologists who are using this argument, they
What's
go...
up, Issa?
My question is, is he going to tell us what his why he thinks it's a bad argument? Because I didn't hear why he thinks.
I guess, and it's just hilarious that they're going with this guy. He believes you run the Islamic Dilemma, although he just refuses to call it that. But you just run it from the Torah. Great job.
From Injil to the New Testament, or the Gospels in particular, that can't fly because that can't fit with an Islamic definition of Injil. Why that's the case? According to the Quran and Islamic definition, the Injil refers to a revelation that was given to Isa, to Jesus, in his time, and it was completed in its revelation in his time. So when we think of the New Testament Gospels, that's not what we think of. We've got...
That's just not true.
Exactly.
There's no evidence. There's no evidence for
about.
that claim. That's the argument that these folks are saying, but there's no evidence for that claim. To say that it was completed in its time, where is that from? I've never heard of that before.
No, it's not.
I just want to point out the irony here that Muslim dawah guys are trying to use a Christian to refute the Islamic dilemma, and now we have a Muslim refuting the Christian who's refuting the
Not just any Muslim, a Sufi / Jewish.
Yeah, dude, this Christian pastor, again, whatever his name is, dude.
Greg.
So, yeah, Muslims will use your clip because they definitely can't argue their way out of the Islamic dilemma. So they love to appeal to some sort of authority and just say, here's a Christian who says it's a bad argument. Great. I can following your reasoning, anytime you guys argue something, I can find a Muslim who says the opposite, and then that'll work, right? Great. Issa just said says you guys don't know what you're talking about. See, I found a Muslim who says you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you've been refuted, right? Or do we actually look at the arguments and see who's right, not just... See, this is called an irrelevant appeal to authority. That's a fallacy. Look it up, Dr. Imran.
4 different books that are different accounts by different people. Right. They're putting down their own account. They're incorporating things that Jesus said, and they're shaping it in their account for their purpose.
Hey, Christian pastor, do we have the 4 Gospels? Do we have the 4 Gospels? Were those 4 Gospels from the 2nd century on treated as a unit called the fourfold Gospel or just the Gospel? Yes. Would the Gospel, if it's referring to a book, wouldn't that be called the Evangelion? And if you transliterated that into Greek, if you transliterated that into Arabic, wouldn't that be the Injil? So if the Quran is referring to the Injil that Christians have and that Christians are supposed to judge by, and you're saying, oh, it's not the 4 Gospels, what is it? What is
exactly?
What's the Quran pointing to? It's amazing. He did the exact same thing Muslims do. He pretended that the only thing the Quran says is something given to Jesus, and he ignores everything else. That's not good enough. That doesn't work. The Quran says it's talking about what we have. Here, we know what we have. If you're saying the Quran's talking about something else that we have, what's it talking about? That's the point. And it's just amazing. This guy could be walking down the street and I could say, hey, dude, I'm affirming your book, the book that you have, the book right there, that. According to him, he would not conclude that I'm talking about what he has. It's amazing.
And David, you want to know the another evidence that this guy doesn't understand the Islamic dilemma? Because look, if what he's saying is like that's the Quranic position, and the Quran is saying that that book doesn't, or I don't know exactly what he's arguing, but if he's saying that this book is corrupted, well, guess what? That's just the other horn of the Islamic dilemma. So however you want to spin it, however you want to spin it, whether you want to say that the Quran is talking about our Bible or it's been corrupted, or maybe he takes the lost position. Maybe he says it's lost. Maybe it's like a John Fontana position. I don't know. But you fall into the Islamic dilemma no matter what you want to say. So it's just more evidence he doesn't know the dilemma he's arguing against.
Yeah, it's in the Islamic dilemma, because just like the Quran gets it wrong that Jesus wasn't crucified, it also gets it wrong that it's just a book that was dropped on Jesus. But it still confirms it. So it's still within the two horns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep in mind, following this guy's reasoning, right? Following this guy's reasoning, I would have to say, well, the Quran refers to Isa as someone who wasn't crucified, but Jesus that we're talking about was crucified. Therefore, the Quran is not talking about Jesus, and we don't know who it's talking about. You guys see that? If I say, oh, here's what the Quran says here's what the Quran says it's talking about. It's talking about a guy, and we have to go with what the Quran says about that guy to know what it's talking about, right? Okay, we go to what the Quran says about Jesus, and it says he didn't die, and he didn't claim to be the Son of God, and this and that, right? But that's not the Jesus that we're talking about. That's different. Therefore, the Quran's not talking about the Jesus we're talking about. It's talking about a completely different guy that we have no access to, and we don't know what it's talking about. That's what he just did, everyone.
Do you know what's interesting? I don't know if you saw this, all three of you, but there's like the Islamic version of the Ten Commandments. It's called Ar-Risala in Arabic, or The Message, right? It's from the late 70s, so it came out. It actually has a lot of famous British actors in it. It's got people from Star Wars. It's got famous like folks from like Western spaghetti westerns. They got an all-star cast in the English speaking one, and it has Anthony Quinn, but there's also an Arabic version of it. But basically what happens in it is there's a scene, and I recommend everyone see this scene, where they quote the Bible, they quote the New Testament, and they quote the Hebrew Scriptures. And El-Azhar greenlit this movie, by the way, and they quote the text and like, and in the Noble Testament it says, and then it quotes the New Testament, and it quotes the Hebrew Scriptures. So it's so bizarre. I'm like, this is a movie that was greenlit by El-Azhar. It was like this painstakingly done movie where they said we have to do everything right according to Islam. The Prophet of Islam isn't shown. Imam Ali is not shown, right? They do that. They really painstakingly do this, right? But there's a whole scene where they're quoting the Bible and saying how great, like they're like, Allah says in the Bible. I'm not making it up. You need to take a look. And it's wild to hear these people. They're like refuting a movie that was greenlit by El-Azhar. So I find that to be wild.
And and that's funny. Just on the note that you were saying about it would be like a different Jesus. I was thinking like it would also be a different Moses too, right? Because
I was thinking it would be a different Torah, and he could just do what John Fontaine did. Is that in your Bible, David? Exactly. Is that in your Bible? So these guys run the Islamic dilemma with the Torah, saying here's what the Quran says is in the Torah, but it doesn't line up with what's in the Torah. Well, following your reasoning, you just have to say, okay, then it doesn't fit the Quranic definition of what the Torah is, because the Quranic definition would include this, and you're saying, it doesn't include that, and therefore the Quran is wrong. But no, it wouldn't be referring to the Torah that you have. And you can't run, what's your argument? The Muslim difficult decision between two alternatives.
Yeah. So
yeah, because the Torah wasn't also a book dropped on Moses.
Yeah,
that's right.
So the way that the Quran describes the origin story, if you want to say like that, of the Torah, it's not the same as the Bible, but it also talks about like Moses, talk about like 9 signs instead of the 10 plagues, and like
So is that the same Moses or a different one?
There's no death of the firstborn.
Different.
And so if you're going to use to the pastor, if you're going to use John Fontaine's argument about the Injil, you can't then ignore his same argument that he uses about the Torah, because he says it for both. You can't just have it for one, not the other. So the same Muslim who taught you, who fed you that dawah line, is the same Muslim who's going to tell you that it's also applicable to the Torah as well. So in other words, they're going to say that the Injil is not referring to the Injil that you guys have. Neither is the Torah referring to the Torah that you guys have. So we can respond to that, and Muslims, David has a whole debate on that, but you can't just choose half of it when it applies to something that when you want to, gain favor with the Muslims or whatever you want to do, because Muslims love that. Oh, let's put down David Wood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean this is Muslims love that, and that's the only reason why people like him do that kind of stuff is because they want to appease the Muslims. Really, that's what it is.
But then he ends up being in the dilemma himself instead of being outside of it, because you can't do it from the Torah either. You'll be stuck,
if you're going to be consistent,
you'll be stuck inside it.
Yeah.
So you're now in the Muslim position as the pastor.
Yeah, and for any up and coming Christian apologists out there, yes, if you want to get on the good side of Muslims, you just start blasting away at other Christian apologists that they really don't like. That doesn't mean they're going to take you seriously. That means they're going to treat you as useful when it's convenient. But yeah, he just destroyed his own argument. So
what they're writing. That idea, though, that people wrote their own books, giving their own account of stuff that Jesus did and said.
If they didn't write it, how do we have it written? How does the Quran say we have it written? If no one wrote it. So no one wrote it, right?
That is not what the Quran is saying as the Injil.
What?
So I just wanted to give that. This is what people. This is some. Not everyone is saying that, but some people.
Some people who don't understand the argument and don't even understand where the argument came from are saying that the argument is wrong. Wow, great, lovely. So
what's funny is that we're going to see the Muslims after debating on their solution to it.
Yeah, they destroy it again. It's okay.
Yeah, and yeah, so they destroy it again. And watch what we do. We're gonna weigh the evidence, right? We're not just gonna like, oh, this guy, this is a good point against this position. This is a good point against this position. But here's why. Whereas these guys, they just want a savior. They want to be saved out of the Islamic dilemma.
Yeah, sorry. That Christian pastor ain't saving you from the Islamic dilemma, Abbas and Imran, and I have to regard you as just massively deceptive for trying to dupe your followers into thinking, oh, well, that guy who didn't even understand the argument and who, if he took his own claim seriously, would destroy his own argument, and that's really, really, really clueless. There you have it. That's the refutation. Bad. So if that's what you're coming up with, not going to go well. All right, I'm going to fast forward to around 20 just because that's when I recall someone jumped in and asked a question and then they responded by saying that either response works. I'm guessing this is the guy. All right, let's see what he says.
What I'm calling John's proposal, but I'm sure there's precedence for it. But so I wanted to understand what the importance of, or why we have to why do we have to say that there was a authentic Torah in Medina at the time?
So is he challenging John Fontaine's position, saying why do we have to say there was an authentic one and not some corrupt version? Okay, we'll see.
Yeah,
and it's hey, dude. Like. Hey, Jawad, I'll give you an answer, and I don't think they're going to give it to you. The correct answer is why John Fontaine says there had to be an authentic Torah, and he says there had to be an authentic Injil as well. Why John Fontaine says that is because he's going with what the Quran says. The Quran is obviously affirming inspiration, preservation, and authority of a Torah and a gospel that were written down and that people had in the 7th century, right? He's being honest about the verses that we bring up. But he recognizes it doesn't line up with what we have, and therefore he's just saying, oh, it's talking about something else, some mystery book that just popped into existence and then disappeared.
There are some people who've argued that.
John Fontaine.
But my personal view is that there seems to be a lot more people arguing against that. But I think, to be honest, I think
insane.
There are two reasons why I think this has happened. Number one, it's happened because some people actually believe that certain statements that were made by some of the early scholars and what have you, that the Torah at that time was there was a preserved version, or there was a version of it that was very.
That is so weird. He says the reason some people, namely John Fontaine, some people are arguing that there was a preserved Torah is because there were early commentators who thought that. Notice it's not, they never seem to care what Allah says.
Right.
Why can't John Fontaine just say, hey, it says you have to believe in all of it and not just parts, and therefore it's obviously saying it was preserved. It's weird.
Yeah.
Preserved, where there were not major issues with it or whatever. and then of course there's the view that that it was already corrupted. The point is really, I think, and this is the more important point really, that I think we shouldn't necessarily nail our flag to the mast and say it was 100% this. I think personally what we should say,
I mean, you literally can't have both views. You can't.
Yeah.
Like historically, only one thing could have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that you could, like, what do you call it, the cat?
Oh yeah, Schrodinger's cat.
Like it could have been corrupted in the 7th century, and it could
It's both corrupted and not corrupted.
Yeah.
It's a historical thing, right? What we're
Yeah.
talking about.
All right.
And I think this is an interesting thing because this is what my paper was focusing on, is on, you know, the different types of tahrif, right? I think we talked about it, the textual tahrif versus, you know, the kind of tahrif of like words, like where a person twists, like they corrupt the words. I think you can only really argue the linguistic thing, because you can't prove textual corruption. These people are not See, this is why we have academia, right? Where people have different types, and I respect academia, where people go and you have different levels of scholarship. Historians, anthropologists, sociologists, it's a lot of work that you have to do. And it's really bizarre when people, he's a doctor. Is he a doctor of anthropology? Is he a doctor of history? If he's not, then why is he talking about something way out of his scope of field? If you're going to argue that these texts are corrupted, like we said earlier on the stream, then you would have to pander to some crazy conspiracy theory where all of these people across the globe unify together and did this like syncretic type of corruption to unify in the corruption of the text. Now, a perfect example of why this would be false is you have rabbinic Judaism and, you know, Trinitarian Christianity, right? And they both share the same Tanakh. They both share the same Hebrew scriptures or Old Testament, right? They share the same text. Yes, there's slight variance of like the names of the text and where the text fits, you know, in its compilation, but essentially it's the same text, right? So these two groups that are at odds, why would they share the same text if, you know, there was wouldn't it serve that these texts would be different? Like if we're creating a hypothetical, this is bizarre. It's nonsensical. And all it does is you're like, I like my tribe and I want my tribe to be special and better than your tribe. So I'm going to do whatever I can to defend that. So whatever stuff I'm just going to make up. I'm going to do like one of those, like, I don't know if you've seen those bad, like, parody movies, where they just throw a bunch of, and particularly when it's supposed to be humor, they throw a bunch of jokes at you. And then you're like, oh, there's like 2 jokes that are funny and the rest are not funny. That's the type of thing. Or let's just throw everything at the window and maybe 1 or 2 of these things will stick. It's not working.
It's definitely not working. So yeah, two terrible Abbas, 2 terrible responses do not somehow add up to a good response.
You're right.
They don't.
Oh boy.
Regardless of what view you hold, whether you hold the view that there was a preserved Torah at the time, and this would have been because it was revived, because it was revealed to Isa alayhi salam. And so from Isa alayhi salam's time, because of that revising of the Torah, giving it back to Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, because he was taught the Torah, that the argument is that somehow it survived for the 600 or so years.
Pretty weird.
For the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But the point I'm trying to make here is, I don't think we should necessarily nail our flag to the mast. I think what we should say is that this is one opinion and this is the other opinion.
This is one terrible opinion that doesn't work, and this is the other terrible opinion that doesn't work. Great. And then you have Christians saying, here's what Allah obviously says, and it doesn't fit what either one of you are saying.
Regardless of whichever opinion you follow, what you have today is not the Torah. What you have today is not the Injil, and that is the more pertinent question to be answered.
And of course, why is Allah telling us to judge by it?
Because the point is that you're basing your religion, you're basing your akhirah, your whole afterlife, on what you hold in your hands today.
And you're basing your whole afterlife on a book that you keep contradicting and you obviously don't really believe in and don't take seriously. So what are you doing? Why are you telling us to believe in your book when you don't take Allah seriously?
And that's not the Torah, and that's not the Injil. That's
well, just weird that he told us to judge by them and we don't have them. And it's weird that he says we have them and we don't have them.
Old Testament and the New Testament, which are revised books. So look, as I say, I know John's arguments are quite compelling, and I think he
what's compelling?
John's arguments are quite compelling. You see, what happened was Allah revealed the Torah to Moses, and then it disappeared, and we have no record of it existing until the Quran says it was re-revealed to Jesus, and then it disappeared again, and then suddenly popped up into existence in 7th century Medina. Conveniently, both the Torah and the Injil popped into existence in 7th century Medina. We have no trace of their existence ever before then. And so we have these, I did a video the other day on the Bayesian Islamic Dilemma. That actually applied to the standard Muslim response, meaning if you take one hypothesis, our hypothesis, that the Quran affirms the inspiration, preservation, authority of the Jewish and Christian scriptures, and you take the Muslim hypothesis, no, the Quran is saying that the Jewish and Christian scriptures have been corrupted and you shouldn't judge by them because they've been corrupted. And you look at what the Quran says, it massively favors one hypothesis over the other. The other hypothesis makes no sense in light of the evidence. That was geared towards the normal one. If I were to apply Bayesian reasoning to John Fontaine's, it would be the prior, you would point out that the intrinsic probability, which is the prior probability, which is how much you need to pack into a hypothesis, it's just massively improbable, right? It's you have to posit this appearing and disappearing books and stuff like that, and say that somehow they popped into existence in this one little place in Arabia, and we have no record and no one quotes them, and we have no evidence that they existed apart from some Islamic sources. That is so massively insane as a hypothesis that it would the probability would be just really, 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 really low from the beginning. And so it'd be a completely different kind of response. But to say it's compelling to who? To people who are so desperate for any response to the Islamic dilemma, they'll just believe in magic. Like, it's amazing.
If it's so compelling, why is it a minority view?
Yeah, it's compelling, right?
He doesn't even hold to it. It's so compelling he doesn't hold to it.
It didn't compel him.
Yeah.
Provides quite a lot of evidence to support his.
Quite a lot of evidence.
His
what?
Statement.
Quite a lot of evidence. John Fontaine, is there any manuscript anywhere, even a fragment anywhere? No, but there's lots of evidence for it.
And I know that there are other brothers who disagree, but the point I'm trying to make to you is, I personally, I don't think knowledgeable enough to make the distinction between the two, but I would perhaps argue that it actually doesn't matter what view you hold. The point here is, even if the Quran is talking about a preserved Torah at the time of the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that simply doesn't exist today.
Okay.
And so it doesn't exist today. So you can't then say that if it existed back then. And the other thing is this, and I think John makes a compelling argument whereby it's referring to things like the mention of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other things. It's making a reference to those things, and those things clearly do not exist today.
Did you catch that?
Oh,
did you catch that?
So Muhammad isn't in the Bible.
We need to clip that, guys. We need to clip that. Everyone, did you just hear what he said? He says,
yeah.
The reason John Fontaine's argument is compelling is because the Quran is saying Muhammad's mentioned in there. He's clearly not in the book that they have today. What?
Isaiah 42.
Deuteronomy 18.
Deuteronomy 18. Nope.
He just,
yep.
You know what's funny though is this is
Song of Solomon.
Yeah, yeah. This is an analogy that you've used in the past, and you've said like, "Hey, if I tell you guys that I'm a prophet, and you go down to this street here, and you take this turn here, you're gonna see a big sign, and that sign's going to confirm that I'm a prophet. So they go down the street there, they take that turn, they see the sign, it says, "Don't believe this guy, he's a false prophet." And then they conclude, instead of you being the false prophet because you brought him to a sign that contradicts your own revelation or your confirmation, but they conclude the sign's corrupted. So they're doing that same thing. So the Quran is saying to go to the Bible, you'll find Muhammad in there. They're going to the Bible. Well, it doesn't say that, but it says they find Muhammad in there, and then they go to the Bible. They say, "Oh, he's not in there." So therefore, this can't be the Bible. Instead of saying the Quran's wrong,
Yeah.
it's not even it's not even an option in their mind. It's not even a possibility.
And we do have from the Tabari actually that even at the time of Muhammad, the Jews said that he's not in there. The people of the book said he's not in there.
And they weren't like, "Oh, you have a different Torah."
No, and Muhammad didn't tell them that they had a different Torah. He just said, "You're lying," and no one bothered to check. And there's no evidence from that time that anyone pointed to any verse from that book, even at that time, to say Muhammad's in there.
Yeah, so I guess if we were to apply my sign analogy to this, so if I were to say, "Hey guys, I'm a prophet," you don't believe I'm a prophet? Well, just go down by the river. There's a big sign that says David Wood is a prophet, and then you'll know that I'm a prophet. Go check it out. And so they go check it out. They see a sign. Don't believe in David Wood. He's a false prophet, a liar, and a deceiver. The Abbas and Imran position would be someone changed the sign. Yes, that's the sign. That's the sign. And someone changed it. Whereas the John Fontaine response would be there was a different sign that popped into existence.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about. But then it disappeared so that when you actually go to check it out, it's not there. And you're thinking that it was talking about this other sign, which is actually there, but it's not. It was talking about a sign that appeared and then disappeared. These are their responses. And he's saying, yes, but these are both equally good, or they're both good. They're both compelling. They're both stupid and idiotic, Abbas. I'm not trying to be mean, but they are. They're ridiculous. And if your religion, your understanding of it at least, forces you to this, you're not getting out of the Islamic dilemma.
Nope.
I would say also it's conjecture. There's just a bunch of conjecture. It's like, I have no evidence for the claim. There's no historical engagement. There's no, like what DOC had said in the previous stream about there's no original source text. So I'm like, so we're just making things up and just saying that this is true.
And it's
an assertion. It's conjecture and assertions. And I'm like, is that really what you want to present?
That is.
And you're saying, and then the biggest problem, this is my biggest problem with these people's position, is if what they're saying is true, it's far worse than you can even imagine. If we say that the Torah and the Injil are corrupted, what we're saying is either God is weak and cannot, maintain God's holy texts, or God is a wicked deceiver. What choice do you want to take in that position? Because it doesn't sound good. What you're saying is far worse than just like, oh, these things don't corroborate. What you're basically saying is you're attacking and insulting God. I don't know if you really want to take that position. And I keep hearing people say, well, people have free will. People have free will. And I'm like, so people have free will to change what God said? Do you really think people have the power to change what God said? That to me is just like the apotheosis of like how this thing is, it collapses. Mm-hmm. And I don't hear a response to that. All I hear is, oh, well, people have free will. And then when it comes to the Quran is perfectly preserved. And it's just the way that it is. It's just the way it is. And I'm like, huh? So God gave all these revelations to prophets. There's this whole, lineage of truth and haqq and hikmah that's being transmitted, right? And then all of a sudden, it just, it's gone. And here's the Quran. But the problem is that the Quran does not replace these texts. That's the other part of this issue. If you're correct, if these people are correct, the Quran should have everything that was within the Torah and within the Injil. And it doesn't. It gives Spark Notes versions. It gives you kind of like, here's a highlight. Like, like in a movie, when you have like sequels and you have like a little trailer that fills people in about like what happened in the previous movie. That's kind of how the Quran works, right? It gives you like a little snippet and you're like, oh, this is like some of the highlights that occurred within this story. It doesn't give you the whole framework of the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like this. It's like previously in the Torah and the Gospel, or previously in Allah's revelations. Gives you a little gist. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it is. So it's so bizarre to hear people like when we heard in the other thing, it's correcting. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Are you kidding me? Are you joking? Are you pulling my chain? And they say that it's correcting, it's replacing. How could it replace? You would need a far large. And I wanted to show this to you. This is what I found this here. So look at this. This is an Arabic manuscript leaf of jurisprudence, right? This is a jurisprudence text. Look at all this commentary that's around the text, right? Here's the primary text here, and there's a bunch of, just like the Talmud, it has a bunch of commentary around it, right? So you can see that little show and tell there. It's from like the 18th or early 19th century. But so it's a cool little piece, like a museum piece that I got. But that's the thing. It's like the Quran should be looking like that, right? Like it should be like, okay, this is the Quran is going to give a whole commentary on the Torah and why the Torah is wrong in this place and why the New Testament is wrong in this place. And it doesn't do that. So this makes all of these positions they're bringing are illogical. They're irrational. They're nonsensical. And it's just bizarre that they keep repeating it like, we're going to buy it. We're not buying the ship you're selling. Sorry.
That's true. All
and
right,
I
so
like how he just keeps like asserting over and over again, like what they have is not the Torah and the Injil. And I know he needs to say that, but there's no verse in the Quran that says that. But he just has to keep asserting that over and over and over again.
The Quran is meant to be eternal. If it says judged by the gospel, it's for all Christians of all time, unless Allah abrogates it by another verse. That's another minefield too.
Yeah, but like he's like, either position you take, the conclusion is always going to be that whatever the Christians have is not what the Quran is referring to, and he has no evidence for that whatsoever, apart from saying the Quran is wrong. that that Muhammad is like says that he's in there, but he's not in there. That's not evidence that we don't have it. It's just evidence that the Quran is wrong.
Yeah, so I have to say, welcome to fantasy land, everyone. These guys live in total fantasy land. Anyway, well, I think we got the gist. I think we got the gist of that clip. Someone's asking about, hey, what about responses? So the gist of what we have so far is, hey, here's a Christian who doesn't understand the argument. And he says it's a bad argument since he doesn't understand it. So we'll go to him instead of actually, showing that it's a bad argument. And then here we have two approaches. Neither one of them makes any sense, but somehow either one of them works as long as you're desperate enough and you're willing to accept absolutely any response, no matter how silly. Okay, great. That's all great. Now let's check out the clip. The clip where the dawah wars start, apparently.
Yeah, somewhere around 57 minutes, somewhere around there. Yep. Whenever John Fontana gets in there and he's like, "Hey, Fareed, can you explain your position?" And he's really, really wanting him to engage with his position. And
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm just giving you a preview.
I hope you were correct on the timing because all I did was cut it exactly where you said.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, if it was like from 57 to 104 or something like that. So I just cut it exactly out. There are a couple super chats. Let's take these real quick. Just a little support for the work. Thank you. You didn't develop Islamic Dilemma. True. Your video was the push. Yeah, that's what I said. I helped popularize it. I want to make a YouTube channel that challenges the left's fondness of Islam to hopefully mitigate immigration. Is this Christian, though? God bless. Well, I mean, you could be a Christian who is puzzled by the left's fondness for Islam and points out the issues there. Or you could be an atheist, or you could be a leftist who wonders why people are supporting Islam, or you could be a Muslim who says like, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing with the left? I guess so. Yeah, you could have a variety of positions and do that. Thank you, Dr. Wood, Giant DOC, for having me. Huh. Seems like a nice guy. The Quran has a different Moses and Jesus because in the Quran, Moses is Jesus' uncle.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, matter of fact, that we should start arguing that. We should start using their argument and just saying, nope, it's talking about different guys. Just talking about completely different guys. So you guys believe whatever you want about your guys, but it's not talking about our guys.
Yep.
Ode Zut by House of Abdullah. And we have a Sufi and a Sunni went to a bar. Mitzvah. That's especially funny because Issa's half Jewish. It should be a Sufi and a rabbi went to a bar. Mitzvah. All right, ready to check this out? So this is the clip, everyone. This is where things spiral completely out of control for EF Dawah. And we also have a bunch of people.
Well, I was thinking, just so we don't go into too much depth here, I think what would be good, because we...
Hold up, we have, Abbas still, Imran still. We have Fareed. I know Fareed. We have Ijaz, the racist. Hey, Ijaz, change your... Ijaz the Trini. Change it to Ijaz the racist, because we've heard your racist comments and the racial epithets you use. We have John Fontaine, know him. Sarmad, not familiar with him. And
I think he called in to our stream.
Fawad?
He was the one that kept... I think he was the guy... Is he the same guy? He was the one who kept over-talking you in the stream with God Logic, I think.
Oh, yeah, he said I couldn't ask my question, and then David told him off.
Yeah, that's that guy. I don't know if you remember him, David. He called in one of our streams with Avery. I think it was with Avery. Yeah.
I do not remember. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Samad, but you did not make a lasting impression on me.
I think it's him, anyway.
All right, so guys,
but then this Fawad guy is he's the apprentice of John Fontana. So that's
awesome.
So that's why he kind of hands him the reins to go against Fareed.
Nice.
Here we go.
Speak offline. I was thinking if maybe Fawad could just give a quick, very simplified version of what the opinion is, what we believe, and maybe Fareed can give a very simplified, concise version. We don't have to go into loads of detail, and it'll just avoid any kind of online debating. But at least Borat Abbas and Imran and the audience will be clear on what is going on, because some people are like, what is going on?
Wait, so is he requesting that Fawad give sort of his response, which is John Fontaine's response, and then Fareed gives his response to the Islamic dilemma so that people understand the difference between the two positions? Is that what he's saying?
Yep, because there's a lot of confusion and
that's what the answer was.
Yeah.
All right, let's see it.
They're so confused. So that's what I suggest. I don't think now is the time or the place to really debate and speak of the details. But I think would be useful to have.
They don't want to debate because people they start attacking each other's positions, and what's going to happen? Your position's wrong. No, your position's wrong. Okay. Well, guess what? If one's saying the other position's wrong and they're saying the other position's wrong, and all we need, according to Abbas and Imran, is to point to one Muslim who says that it doesn't work, then guess what? Both fail by that standard. Wonderful.
Have a concise breakdown of the two opinions.
Yes. So the limelight is on me now. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the Ikhwan. Jazakallah khair for having me on. So my stance is very simple, rather the camp that I am leaning more towards, right? Like, to debunk the Islamic dilemma, all we have to say that it was not the Bible that the Christians at least have today.
No, you don't. That is not that you are a trillion miles away. You can say it's not the Bible. Well, I can say fine. I normally don't even say Bible. I say Torah and Gospel or Jewish and Christian scriptures. Why? Because he specifically says it's talking about the scriptures written down. So whether that includes, I think you can make a case that it refers to the Bible, mainly because it just keeps saying book, your book, your book, your book, your book. What book do we have? Sounds like it's talking about our book, people of the book. What book? What book are we the people of? So I think you can make that case, but no. I could agree with you and say, no, the Quran isn't talking about the book, but it's clearly talking about the Torah and the Gospel. And take your pick, Torah or Gospel. I will run the Islamic dilemma from either one. So sorry, buddy, that's not going to work.
And watch his reasoning for why that's the position. Like you said, it's not what Allah says, but we'll watch what it is.
Of the canons.
I have a comment too.
And we have substantial evidence for that, from our literature.
From
the
our
whole
literature.
Dilemma goes out the window. Halas. That's it. We stop right there, right? Now, whether or not it was corrupted or it was intact or partially intact, that's a nuanced topic with opinions varying among scholars. From the research that I have done over the past year or so with different brothers, I'm leaning more towards, I would say 70% of the scholars leaning more towards it not being corrupted, right?
Is it?
But again, it's a very nuanced topic.
He just said 70% of scholars say that it's not corrupted.
So notice what the scholars are not saying, though. The scholars are not saying that there's a phantom Injil and phantom Torah, but what they are saying is that the
It's
books
not
aren't corrupted.
corrupted.
So they're trying to work out these different factoids, and they're like, okay, so wait, it's not corrupted, but they know if they go to the books, Islam is gone. So like, how do we come up with a solution for this? So they're trying to work within that kind of framework. But I think it's really funny, like you pointed out, no one goes to what does Allah say.
But it's funny because those 70% of scholars, they don't say it disappeared.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
All they say is that it's not corrupted.
Yeah.
So now you have to show evidence where it disappeared. Why did it survive all these hundreds of years only to disappear in our present time?
This is interesting stuff, guys. We keep pointing this out. What do we do? What do we do? When we run the Islamic Dilemma, what do we quote Allah and Muhammad. And when they're talking about scholars and stuff, then we'll point out these things that their scholars say and so on. But we as far as running the argument, go back and watch my opening statements from my debates on this. All I quote, Allah and Muhammad, Allah and Muhammad, Allah and Muhammad, and then look at this commentary, look at this scholar, look at this scholar, look at this scholar. And here, it's apparently not even. They don't care what Allah says. This is amazing. I say this scholar. Well, 70% say this. Well, 30% say this. Well, 5% say this. This is how you're figuring out what Allah says. All we do is read. All we do is read. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Okay. Here we have a statement of Allah. Raise your hand if you think that what he really means is this.
All in favor say aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have
All
it. Now we know
opposed-
what Allah
All
means.
opposed say zoots.
Yep.
Zeus.
Zoot.
So there's something interesting here. He said a word that I love to use. It's one of my favorite words. He
Khalas.
said, "Oh yeah." He used the word. He used khalas. He used the word nuance, and I think nuance is a great word and it's a powerful word. But in this situation, I don't think it's a good word. If we're going to say that there's nuance here, is there nuance that there's corruption in God's words? I again have to reinforce and bolster the position that I stated before. If you believe that these texts are corrupted, then you are making a hostile attack against God. You're saying God is wicked, or you're saying God is weak.
Weak.
Which position do you want to take, wicked or weak? And I don't think either of these avenues are good. So you have to do, the only route you really can take is like some kind of reconciliation route. It's not going to look strong. You're not going to be able to go to debates with it, but it can work with your faith. You can take something like that, but you're going to have a lot of humility, and you're going to have to, it's going to be a lot of work, but you can't take the position of, there's no way you can take the position of rebelling against the text, because if you attack the text and say that they're false, then you say your own text. I think the Islamic dilemma works. It plays out. If you say that it's false, then you're saying the Quran is false, and you're saying, and not only are you saying the Quran is false, you're saying God is weak or wicked. Not a good position, not a good scenario. It's you may have won this kind of battle of semantics, but you have lost the war. So it's a very terrible position that they keep taking. I think it's very myopic. I think they're very short-sighted. They only see that this, deals with the situation at hand, right? It's like, for example, like you have a splinter, right? And you're like, okay, well, it hurts, so I'm going to put some like Neosporin cream on it. But you don't pull out the splinter that's there, and you let the splinter fester, and then eventually it gets gangrenous, right? That's what's going to happen in this situation. All they're doing is putting some Neosporin on it. They're not actually engaging with the splinter. So I think it's catastrophic.
Yeah, and what Issa just pointed out is something that just frequently gets overlooked, even in debates about the Islamic dilemma, is that when you guys are talking about the corruption of books that Allah says He gave as a guidance for mankind and so on, it sounds like you're just saying he is weak and he failed and so on. I mean, just imagine this, right? Imagine this. Imagine I'm some dude and I say, hey, here's a book. I got this book, boy. No one can change my words. I'm giving this book to mankind as a guidance, and no one can stop me. And then someone just walks along and says, and I go, oh no, my book. What happened to my book? Oh, I don't know what to do. But I'm going to keep bragging about how no one can stop me, and no one can stop my book, and my book's guidance for mankind. But I'll just pretend that didn't happen. That sounds pathetic. It sounds absolutely pathetic. And that's what you're telling us about God. And it's this weird situation where we're like, have more respect for your God, dude. Have more respect for your God. Wild stuff,
and also, how come the Dawah gang's been telling everyone the Bible is corrupt? And 70% of scholars said it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
They're going against the majority of their scholars, everyone. The majority of their scholars
All I
say
heard
they're liars.
And you know what? It's like, I know they're going by scholars, not going by the Quran, but the scholar, whoever they're following for each position, it's like it's like prioritizing or taking certain parts of the Quran seriously. So the John Fontana group is taking the parts of the Quran that, when we point out for the Islamic Dilemma, that for example, that it's there, it's intact, and that, you know, it's not corruptible. And so they're taking that part seriously. But what they're not taking seriously is the continued preservation, and that it seems to be like this, like whatever the Christians have in their presence, that's not some like local canon that only they had in Medina or something like that, but it's just the general Christian canon. Whereas like the general Torah as well, like there's not like a Torah canon that differed vastly in any sort of significant way from the Torah that they would have had in, like, say, Rome or Jerusalem, or the ones that are living in Arabia at the time. So they're taking different parts of the Quran, and they're prioritizing those over the other parts. And all we're doing is, for the Islamic Dilemma, is just taking all of them seriously. We're taking all the passages seriously, and we're saying, this is what happens when you take it all seriously. You get the Islamic Dilemma. And the only way to get out of that, their attempts to get out of that, is to just ignore certain parts of the Quran, or take scholars who ignore certain parts of the Quran.
Yeah, so it's along the lines of, so one group is saying, we're taking part of this seriously, and the other group is saying, we're taking this other part seriously, and we're kind of saying, we're taking it all seriously, and therefore we can't take it seriously. Because the implications of taking it all seriously is that we can't take it seriously anymore. And they're saying, no, you can't not take it seriously, so therefore only take part of it seriously.
Yep.
And not that's different from Issa. Issa saying I take it all seriously, but I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. You know what though, and they're also you can tell from their language and just how they're talking, like they're like trembling and they're nervous. Yeah, they're like so nervous, and they're like
stuttering.
They're walking on eggshells and they're stuttering, and they're like, we can go in private. Like, I don't know if you caught John saying that, but like, we can go in private and offline, and we can do, but like, and we don't want to get into too much detail.
The people are confused.
Yeah, the people are. So it's like I mean, I've never seen another kind of situation where like you had Christians Christians who are like Christian apologists on the panel, and they're just like skirting, or they're so afraid to address an issue, and they're like, let's go in let's go in private, guys. Okay, we don't want to confuse anybody, and like that's what these guys are doing. Like, they're so deadly afraid to bring this out to the masses, because they know that there are major holes in each position, and you know, Zut would love that.
Indeed, very rude with the Zoot jokes, though. Let me slightly modify what I just said, which was based on what Jai was pointing out. Yeah, so it's like one side is saying, we're taking this part seriously, but not that part seriously. And then the other group is saying, no, we're taking this part seriously, but not that part seriously. We're saying, me, Jai, DOC, we're saying, we'll take it all seriously, but if we take it all seriously, then we're not going to take any of it seriously because it self-destructs. And Issa's saying, actually, I take it all seriously, but people are thinking about it incorrectly. And something along those lines. I think that would be everything. All right, let's get back to this.
And it cannot be, on these types of panels with just quick Q&A, we cannot answer this. So what I suggest is that's like a topic that should be discussed offline.
What? Oh, he did. He pulled the Yasser Qadi. let's discuss this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This should never be discussed in public. Oh, gosh, man.
Hidden.
Yeah, but the other guys, remember at the beginning, they're saying it's so easy, guys. It's so easy.
It's a straw man.
Yeah, it's just a straw
why are we talking
man.
about this, guys? We should never talk about this in public. It's
Yeah.
just going to destroy everyone's faith, and then they're going to conclude that the Islamic dilemma destroys Islam. So let's pretend this doesn't exist. Too late,
and
bud.
then Abbas was saying, "Well, I'm not knowledgeable enough to take a position on this, but I know it's so easy to debunk." And then you have the people who are knowledgeable on each position, and they're like, "Well, we don't want to do this, guys. We don't want to do this."
Deja vu.
Lay public, they don't need to know this. All they need to know is it was not a
That is
Bible.
Qur'ani
Khalas,
language.
I'll stop it right there. SubhanAllah.
That
Take
really
my
is
class.
Qur'ani language.
Take my class.
Brother Farid, do you want to just briefly explain your position?
Watch this. How
Finish
they
him,
pull
Farid.
teeth to get free. Watch this. How they have to pull teeth to get free to actually engage.
Here we go. No, I will not respond to this because.
I mean, I think it potentially can be a sensitive subject in a sense that people can unnecessarily capitalize from it. But in terms of causing confusion, I think there would only be really substantial confusion if people were claiming that the books today were preserved.
Like Allah.
That could potentially cause doubts or confusion.
In other words,
So I have
Wow.
a problem. I have a problem with what this guy is saying. The thing is, if we take what this guy is saying, he's like, we need to be nice. People need to be nice to us. They need to be nice to our position. But overtly, we're insulting and attacking Jews and Christians.
And
We're
God.
saying that they're and God. Correct. Exactly. That was what I had said before. Correct. That these manuscripts are just destroyed. We don't have evidence for them being destroyed. We have no evidence of global conspiracy. We have no evidence of any of this. It's just pure conjecture. And I want us to just be nice. I'm going to speak really nicely. I'm going to talk nicely. But what I'm actually saying is really nasty. So what I'm really being is I'm a nasty, nice person. That's what it sounds like. I'm hearing some nasty, nice stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
But
And
why
everyone.
is it a sensitive subject?
Yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
like,
Go ahead, Yosia.
Why is it a sensitive subject? It's not his personal.
he always says it's going to cause doubts. It's going to cause doubts.
It's public. Should be public knowledge of what the books are.
And you know what though? It's like I don't think he said he's not knowledgeable of both positions. Well, I think he's right because the other position actually does say that the Torah we have is generally the Torah of Moses. The Injil we have is generally the Torah. So it actually is preserved in, according to them in large form, like, in a large or whatever you want to call it, a general sense, right? So it actually, so his position actually, that you can take either view and it's not problematic. Well, both views are extremely problematic, but he doesn't actually understand what both views are saying.
And I just want to expand real quick on what Issa and I were pointing out about this being insulting. Because it's not just insulting to Jews and Christians and God. It's it's insulting to God, right? So God said, hey, I'm giving the Torah and the gospel as a guidance for mankind. Oops, couldn't preserve it. But he picks Moses and Jesus, and they have their followers, but they pick terrible followers who can't preserve the book. So Moses and Jesus did a terrible job of ensuring that the book is preserved. So Jews didn't preserve it. Christians didn't preserve it. It's like, okay, who are you insulting here? God, Moses, Jesus, Jews, and Christians. And we don't want to be offended. And the Allah of the Quran, because he can't even explain what he means, and he can't preserve his books. And they think this is going to last. Dude, you guys are so cooked you don't even realize it. You guys are still struggling with they're still struggling with the most basic version of the Islamic dilemma, and they're already, we should be discussing this offline. We shouldn't discuss this in public. Do you have any clue what we've got coming out? Do you have any clue? This is the very beginning, guys. This is the very beginning of this. It's about to get way, way, way worse. And you guys are already, we shouldn't be talking about this. No.
But why would you be in public saying we shouldn't be saying this in public? Surely you should have said it in private.
Yeah, at least, like run it by your people first. Like, go, like if they're on StreamYard, right? There's a private chat there. Like, hey guys, are we all on the same page with this? You guys all cool with addressing this
Yeah, why
instead
not
of
then?
making them like squirm like this? But he's like, people will unnecessarily capitalize off of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us. We are unnecessarily capitalizing off of your failed responses and pointing out why these are failed responses. And actually, they work in some ways and don't work in other ways. But notice we're actually putting them with the Quran, and we're actually saying this is why this one works, this is why this doesn't work. So yeah, and I also want to say that these are the guys that are like the forefront of the, like John Fontaine, he's the one like in the heading that position, and I guess Farid's students, Dean and Libiano and stuff, those are his students. Well, I know Dean is, but I don't know about Libiano. But if so, they're like representing on both sides. You have like Farid leading on that side, behind the scenes probably because he's too, I don't know. He doesn't really debate, right? So he's like behind the scenes, like coaching these guys. And then you have John Fontaine, who is in public debating his view very publicly. But these are the ones that are like they're the ones that are like taking on both views, and this is where they're at right now in real time. Like, this is a recent stream. This is not from like 3 years ago. Like David said, this is level 1. They can't get past level 1 of the Islamic Dilemma. Islamic Dilemma level 1. They can't get past that. This is how bad their position is on this. These are the guys on the top guys on both sides of the responses, like this view and then that view, and they can't deal with it.
I just want to say that I think, yeah, I hear you, Jai, and I think that's solid. It's a really bad apologetic, and I'm like, this is my opinion. If you're gonna go into the frying pan, then you got to be ready to get cooked. So it's like,
Yeah.
the thing is, if you're going into the fray, then you got to expect what the consequences of that are. If you want to be a silent Salafi and you want to be a literalist and you want to be in a corner and you don't care about politics and you want to be this devout religious person, okay, that's fine. But if you're coming into the place of public discourse and you want to debate and you want to say your religion is better than other people's religions, you better be equipped. And then you can't start crying and being upset and being in this space of pain and suffering, saying, "Oh, I've been hurt. I have a boo-boo." Well,
My
you
feelings.
decided to come in, huh? You decided to come in. You decided to come into the battle. You decided to come into the fray. You decided all of these things. You decided that you had a better situation. And I see this a lot, like when I watch the call-in shows, and I've seen you and Jai, DOC, you, David, and Avery, and all the people come in and they're like, "I'm so tough. I'm so strong." And then they come in, and then after one like conversation, they just collapse, and they're like, "I'm not knowledgeable. I'm not knowledgeable." That's like this generic line. I'm like, why did you come on the panel then if you're not knowledgeable?
Don't attack my position. I don't know stuff.
Yeah. And they're like, "I'm going to tell you about the Bible," and I'm like, "Do you know anything about it?" No, what you know is some kind of thing
that's their get out of jail free. That's their get out of jail free card. Is like, I'm not a scholar. I'm not like, as if so now they have taken away all responsibility to be responsible with the claims that they make. Because as soon as they say they're not a scholar, that means okay, there's no responsibility for accuracy or for representing the position properly because you're not a scholar. So you have a license to kind of make mistakes, and that's what happened to that guy in the middle, the guy in the dead center there. Same thing happened to him. And he's now going around saying, "Oh, I'm not a scholar. I don't know. I'm not that knowledgeable." But they come in really arrogant, like they are.
Yeah, and they don't know anything about the Bible. Like, let's be honest here. The thing is, what I've seen is it sounds like it's something from Google. Like it was a Google. Maybe there's a page that has Bible verses that are critiqued by Islam. It sounds something like this. It doesn't actually sound like a person who said, "I'm going to sit down with this text. I'm really going to invest my time in it. I'm really going to read it. I'm going to try to understand it from the perspective it's coming from." It doesn't sound like that. And when I listen to people like my best friend, what's his name? My best friend, Nadir Ahmed, he's like, "I want to tell you the New Testament's false because the mustard seed isn't the smallest seed. That was his argument against the New Testament. He's like, this is a false text because there's an analogy about the mustard seed being. I'm like, but that's not the point of the narrative. That's not what's being actually communicated. It's giving an analogy, explaining like the power of faith. It's not about the mustard seed. And he got so fixated on the mustard seed. It's like, this is false, and the Quran is true because of the vast evidence. And I was like, what? Like, my mind is just like blown by these kind of profound arguments. But it's like, that's the point that I don't understand, is that you're coming in this situation, you continuously attack Christianity and Judaism. And then you come in Rabbinic Judaism, and then you're like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. And then you face something like this, which is a very complex argument, and it's a very difficult argument to just to throw away, especially from the position you're taking, where you're saying that these texts are false. And there's even other layers that haven't even brought up. Some of them I was sharing tonight about, like, you're condemning God, you're condemning God's preservation of holy texts, you're saying God is weak or wicked, you're condemning the prophets. You're doing so much damage by taking this position of corruption and phantom texts that you have really no idea. You're basically destroying your entire faith to try to defend this position, to sound like you're tough. It's not a good look.
It's pretty darn bad. Let's see if it gets worse. Fareed's about to respond. Fareed Responds is about to respond. Good to hear from Fareed.
The opinion 1400 years ago, I don't think in reality, and this is what I was saying, John, that there are opinions on the other side as well. Whether that they're strong or not, I'm not qualified to be able to do that. And it's true. I hold my hand up.
So we got one guy saying, no, don't go there. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about the behind the scenes. And the boss saying, I'm not qualified to talk about this stuff. This is great.
And I say I haven't done the years worth of research that Fawad has done, and much less some.
So Abbas is saying, I haven't done the years of research that Fawad has done. What's Fawad saying? We should not be discussing this in front of people because it's bad. It's bad for people to hear this.
Your brothers have been doing. But I think we need to just...
It is. It's a parallel to Muhammad Hijab and Yasser Qadi. Muhammad Hijab, oh, you've got all... You literally wrote the book on sciences of the Quran. You're the expert here. Now respond. And Yasser Qadi, we should not be having this discussion right now. Please don't make me answer.
That's John Fontaine now. John Fontaine he's turning to Muhammad Hijab in terms of the questioner.
Nice.
To make something confusing when it's not confusing as well. And the point is, today's Old Testament and New Testament are not preserved.
Allah couldn't preserve them. He said he gave them as guidance for mankind. He said no one can change his words. He told Jews and Christians to judge by them, but he couldn't do anything. So he's really, really weak and pathetic.
Not the word of God. And so whatever was in the 7th century, in many respects, whether it was...
Whatever was in the 7th century, I don't have it now, even though we have copies of the Torah and the Gospel from before the 7th century, but they're somehow very different. Guys, this doesn't make sense. What's wrong with you?
Potentially more preserved or less preserved or whatever it is. I don't think it has a bearing on what our discussions today. But in any case, Fareed, what's your brief explanation, understanding in terms of why you feel that the Torah and the Injil, in fact, were not preserved at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him?
Here we go. Finally, we're going to have Fareed cook. Here we go.
Wallah, ya Abbas, I feel that just stating my position here is going to lead to a heated debate. So I'm going to...
Wait a minute. Wait.
I told you they take a while to push him into it.
Hang on. So Fawad saying, do not have this discussion. Fareed's going, oh, no, if I tell you my position, that's going to lead to a heated debate. So we don't want that, do we? Hey, this is what we need. We need Muslims debating the Islamic dilemma so that maybe they can figure out what their best response is.
That's good.
And then we'll have like elimination rounds, right? Like these guys can all debate each other on what the best response is until they eventually come up with the best response, and then they can face us with that and then get crushed.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Final boss.
Yeah.
I promise. I will even leave the room. Don't worry. Don't
It's
worry. I
fine.
will
No,
not comment.
this
I will
is
leave the room. Inshallah. I'll leave the room.
no. I know it's gonna go into back and forth. I'm just gonna leave this.
John left.
Wait, John Fontaine left?
Yeah,
to make him more comfortable.
Yeah, because Fareed's thinking, okay, if I say something, this guy's gonna debate me. He's like, I'll leave.
I'm going to say, is that in the Bible, Fareed? Is that in your Bible?
Fareed, just give the position.
If you want, I can leave too.
No. Everyone, if you want me to talk, even though I'm talking amongst my fellow Muslims, everyone leave. Because I don't want any. Look, he's not just scared of Christians responding to him. He doesn't want other Muslims responding to him. What does this tell you, everyone? None of these guys is convinced he has a serious response that can stand up to scrutiny, even from fellow Muslims. What is this?
Are you saying Fareed's unserious response? Is that what it is?
Fareed's unserious.
Yeah, unserious.
Fareed responds poorly.
Poorly. Not
Fareed
seriously.
responds only when everyone leaves the room.
Yeah, and no one can answer back.
Hey, if Fareed responds and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound?
Did he really respond?
It's really wild because I think the best position is kind of the reconciliation position, but the only way that you can do that is you have to leave the debate sphere. You can't attack Christianity. You would have to give up attacking Christianity and Judaism, which I don't think they want to. I think they like it. I think they want to try to humiliate Christianity and Judaism, and I'm just like, it's a Damocles sword. It's like the sword that's overhead, and it's like, it's a lost victory. You're not winning anything. All you're doing is you win a performative battle, but you've lost the war. You can't win attacking Christianity and because Islam, the whole premise of the Islamic tradition is that the whole foundation is based on this. And if you say, I'm going to throw the foundation away, like I said before, your house collapses. So do they want a collapsed house? I mean, it sounds like they're okay with that by making up these. It's like a silly story. These are silly stories,
Yep. Really silly stories. All right. But Fareed's going to respond, right? Because everyone's leaving. Okay. And then Fareed feels a little more comfortable. Fareed feel a little more comfortable. No one look at me. No one look at me. Everyone close your ears and then I'll give my response. Okay, here we go.
But I agree with
don't all of you leave, otherwise it'll be back me and Dr. Imran again.
Please proceed.
He's like, if everyone
I'll
leaves,
just
let me
briefly
and
say,
Imran again.
I'll just briefly leave it with a sentence. You guys can go back and forth as much as you like on it, but to keep it simple, there's no evidence of there being an Injil in Medina. I'm just gonna say that.
Unless you take the Quran seriously.
Yeah, there is a Torah in Medina, but
everyone catch that? So Fareed has a problem with saying something and there's no evidence for it, right? What's he responding to? John Fontaine's claim that there was a reliable, authoritative Torah in Medina and a reliable, authoritative Injil in Medina. And Fareed's saying there's no evidence of an Injil in Medina. So Fareed actually, this to his credit, guess what? I agree with you on this, Fareed, that if someone is saying something existed and there's absolutely no evidence that it existed, that's a problem for the position. And John Fontaine still doesn't get this. But if you can just posit imaginary books that you have no evidence for, we could do that too. We could say there was a Quran before our earliest copy of the Quran, and it said the opposite of everything the Quran said, and that's the real Quran. And we don't have to have any evidence that there was this Quran. Just us saying it is enough. And here's the amazing thing is no Muslim would take us seriously if we said that. And yet, John Fontaine, yes, everyone take me seriously on this. I'm just making things up.
So when Allah was saying judged by the Injil, he was talking to himself or invisible people or something?
Yep.
Yes,
definitely wasn't talking to us.
Yeah, so because chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 5, all Medinan surahs. And so
he was saying, "Oh, you people
with
of the
them,
Injil.
with them, what is with them, what is in their presence, what is between their hands." And then you also have the story, this interesting story in the hadith where like Waraq bin Nawfal. Oh yeah, in the hadith that David points out a lot too, where Muhammad's like, yeah, they have the Injil. What does it benefit them?
But,
Like so.
and Allah saying, "Oh, you people of the Injil, Ahl al-Injil." So
speaking to.
Yeah, you have to judge by it. So who is he speaking to?
But it's interesting that he's acknowledging that, like, okay, you put the Quran aside, you take John's position. There's no archaeological evidence for any. Well, John admitted that, and so Fareed's like, yeah, that's a serious problem when you make a claim and there's absolutely zero evidence for that.
Mm-hmm. And Fareed could actually expand upon it. It's not just that there's no evidence that this Injil existed in Medina. It's as far as John Fontaine's Injil, there's no evidence that it existed anyway. It's not. There's no evidence that it exists in the 1st century, in the 2nd century, in the 3rd century, in the 4th century, in the 5th century, in the 6th century, or in the 7th century, let alone in the 7th century in this specific little spot. No evidence, and he acknowledged that. Not one shred of manuscript evidence for it, except he said, "Oh, the hadith somehow qualify as manuscript evidence, handwritten copy," which is completely insane. But Fareed sees a problem there, as he should. But let's see where they go with this.
But I'm pointing out the most obvious problem with this theory.
It's like one of like 50 most obvious problems.
There's the preserved Injil in Medina. There is no preserved Injil in Medina. There's no Christian community in Medina. So
yeah, and most of it would have been like a Christian slave or something like that.
This theory doesn't really work.
And what about the Torah?
Yeah, there is a Torah there at the time, and
let's see if Fareed has a problem with it magically appearing and then suddenly magically disappearing.
Yeah, I understand where John's coming from, because he will allude to reports that quote verses there that conflict with what we have today. However, there are ways of looking at that. One is these are quotations that are not verbatim. That occurs with prophetic hadiths. Why can't it occur with what's referred to as the Torah?
Yeah. So this is a point that I raised too, and I don't think Fareed got it from me or anything like that. I think it's a common sense point that, like, if you read the hadith and it will quote even the Quran, it quotes the Quran, but it will paraphrase it. And so it happens like, what he said. So what the argument is, for everyone who's not familiar, is that John Fontaine really argues from the hadith that when it quotes the Torah, and that quotation doesn't come in any Torah that we have today, any manuscript of the Torah that we have today, so he concludes, therefore, it's referring to a different Torah altogether. Fareed is simply saying, well, that can just be a paraphrase. It doesn't need to be a verbatim. It could also be, he didn't say this, but you could also say this as well, that it's an interpretation as well. Like when they say, this is a ruling that we get from the Torah, and they quote something, that could be just their interpretation of what the Torah says. John saying, oh, the Torah has to say these exact words. Fareed is saying, no, it doesn't need to. There's no mandate for that. And I think that's a valid response to that position.
And this is a situation where I would appeal to inference to the best explanation. It's what are these guys saying? Hey, the Quran says things that it's claiming are in the Torah. We don't find them in the Torah. So what do we do? John Fontaine, it's talking about a Torah that we have no access to and we can't find and we have no record of even existing. Okay, so he's down to magic again. And then Fareed pointing out, well, maybe it's paraphrasing or something along, and there's a very obvious explanation that the author of the Quran didn't know what he's talking about, but that's the one they can't go with. All right, so we're down to the end here. Let's see.
Also argue for oral tradition. That's also a possibility. Yeah, I agree there. I agree.
It could be. Sometimes you have things that are referred to as the Talmud, and you find it in the narration being referred to as the Torah. I believe that's just a much more, it's a simpler position of looking at our history, and that's a part of it. And secondly, I'm not aware of any classical scholar that says that there's a preserved Torah and Injil in Medina, especially if you cancel Bukhari, and that seems to be the obvious matter. Then there's no one from the first few centuries that's a.
What's that?
Why would you cancel Bukhari? He's like, get rid. So the Muslims love all these scholars. And like, hey, if you get rid of Bukhari, then you don't get this idea that there's a preserved Torah. Yeah. You get rid of Bukhari because that's the statements where Ibn Abbas is it Bukhari, is it Ibn Abbas, where it says like that the words they can be misinterpreted, but they're intact and they're preserved. And he's like, well, you get rid of that, and then you have. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Get rid of the Quran as well.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, hey, don't stop there, Fareed. Hey, if you get rid of all the hadith and the Quran, then the Islamic dilemma goes away, and you guys are good to go. There's no Islamic dilemma. Just get rid of all of it, and you're good to go, man. Good. So I like the direction you're heading in, Fareed.
Also, what he said ties into the stream that you did the other day, where he says, like, sometimes the Quran will make reference to the Torah, or no, the literature will talk making reference to the Torah, but it's actually referring to the Talmud. And he's saying it's much more, easier to explain, to say, well, Torah referring to Talmud, than to say, oh, it's referring to a Torah that doesn't exist anymore.
He's correct, but none of this helps you get out of the Islamic dilemma, Fareed.
Nope.
All right.
None of it.
Last 20-some seconds here. Maybe they're about to come up with something awesome that helps them get away from the problem. Let's see.
On this view. But yeah, guys, I don't want this thing to be a back and forth.
No, that's fine. Fareed, Jazakallah khair. And if you wish to stay, please do. And I know it's very late where you are. But
that's it.
Feel free to stay, because
we
always love having
you
on.
Fight.
Next time, inshallah.
All right.
Next time you guys are on, inshallah, let me know.
All right.
Hang on. So next time he's gonna solve the Islamic dilemma.
Yeah, we got to look out for that one.
Yeah, next time he's gonna solve the Islamic dilemma, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's what they came up with. Anyone see anything remotely resembling a serious response to the Islamic dilemma?
Absolutely not.
No, guys, isn't it amazing? This is such a dumb argument. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's so silly. Why would they? Oh, that's a straw man. It's such a joke. Okay, give us your response. Oh, no, we shouldn't be discussing this. We shouldn't be discussing it. No, we're going to debate. We don't want to debate this.
Next time, guys. Next time. I'll come
Next time we will solve the Islamic dilemma. I promise.
On the next episode, we will solve the Islamic dilemma.
Yeah, we already had previously in the Torah and the Injil, and now we have next time. Wow, we're sitting here.
Yeah, so that was literally the depth of it. But yeah, it's they're a mess. They're a mess.
Wow, guys. I hope everyone. Seriously, guys, the takeaway for all of you who are watching. Look how they're scrambling when we're bringing forward the Islamic dilemma. And again, we're just getting started with this. We're just getting started. We're still giving pretty basic version. We are starting to expand, and you got the Talmudic dilemma version. You had Cameron over at Capturing Christianity give a very early version, but there's lots of stuff coming, lots more stuff coming out. Trust me, gonna be super cool. All right, we'll take these last couple super chats, and then everyone can share their final thoughts, and we'll be out. Christ bless all the Mahdi Beanie Gang. Mahdi Beanie Gang is cool. The Mahdi Beanie Gang. Issa, I know you do live stream sometimes with your other buddies. You should call your group the Mahdi Beanie Gang. I got the basic. Yeah, has a nice ring to it. I got the basics of Arabic workshop by Ayman Ibrahim. Yeah, Ayman Ibrahim's awesome. That Giant DOC, I have a couple of his books. That Giant DOC recommended. I have never felt stupider. Uh-oh, that's not good.
Why? It's I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we should read it, but I wonder why. I don't know why we would feel stupid, because from what I understand, it's just like the basics where he just kind of gives you the alphabet, gives you like, these are verbs, these are verbal forms, these are nouns, these are different things like that. And there's like practices in there too that you can do.
Yeah, I would say maybe if you're having a problem with it, then take Jai's advice from earlier, which is just little bits, but consistent. Little bits, but a lot of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you ask why, if Islam was complete, then in 722 did Yazid II ban icons in churches in the Caliphate after being convinced by a Jewish magician? If you're saying, can you ask? Well, yeah, you can ask anything. So yeah, you can ask anything you want, El Carlo. So
you
ask
can
away.
Certainly ask.
Yeah. Pints with Aquinas signed with Daily Wire. Oh, he finally announced that? I knew that because I recorded with him, when was that? Like, I don't know, a month and a half ago or something like that? Yeah. Pints with Aquinas signed with Daily Wire. One step closer to getting D. Wood and AP on Daily Wire, but I'm disappointed because Ian Carroll promised they are bankrupt. Well, that sucks for Pints with Aquinas. Poor guy. Finally gets to go to Daily Wire, but Ian Carroll says they're bankrupt. And Ian Carroll's super reliable. 10-year Ireland girl raped by Muslim immigrant. 10-year-old? Not good. Not good. Why Hijaz looks like... Why... Oh, Hijaz. I think you mean why Hijaz looks like Lex Luthor or Jeff Bezos. Yeah, I guess he shaved his head. I don't care what his hair is like. I just care that he is a racist, evil doxer. Did you all see the story that Somalia repealed a law setting minimum age of marriage to 15 after just 24 hours due to outrage? Good video by Modi Speaks. Nope, I did not see that. But
Yeah,
I will check
they
that
got
out.
really upset. How dare you outlaw child marriage? And
On Instagram, there were grown men crying, saying this is terrible and an outrage that they won't let them marry children.
And so they threw a temper tantrum, and then they're able to marry children. God forbid they're able to marry children again in Somalia.
And Daniel Hakikachu jumped on the first plane to Somalia to go and defend child marriage.
Yeah.
All the Dawa guys showed up. You cannot stop us from banging little kids. Wow. Can we change Talmud dilemma to the bagel dilemma? I guess you can. I don't know if Chris is going to want to do that. I wonder if I'm guessing Chris came up with the title himself, the name for it himself. No, you can't change someone's name that he came up with. What's LMK stand for? You know, don't
Let me know. Let me know.
Let me know.
Okay. Let me know if I'm mistaken. If Jesus is the word of Allah in the Quran and Allah's words are eternal, that means Jesus is co-eternal with Allah, right? That's what you would conclude from reading the Quran and applying some philosophical principles. That's the reasoning that they used with the Quran being the word of Allah, that Allah is not changing, and therefore it would have to be an eternal relation. But they make things up. They make things up about Jesus and just say, they'll say all kinds of things. They'll say, no, it just means that Allah spoke and Jesus popped into existence. Like, well, I mean, that's how Allah creates everything. So everything would be the word of Allah. A pig would be the word of Allah. This mug would be the word of Allah. And most importantly, D Wood would be the word of Allah. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to say.
Yeah, whenever I hear Muslims using that argument, I that's what I like to do. I like to say, you yourself, tell me you're the word of Allah. And then they start getting like really uncomfortable.
Yeah, say, I am the word of Allah. I want to hear you say it if you believe it. But you don't really believe it, do you? So why are you making stuff up?
Exactly.
Yep. All right, guys. Final thoughts on this giant DOC. Isn't it amazing? I mean, we'll run an argument and we will debate it. We'll do formal debates on the argument. We'll do live call-in after live call-in where any Muslim can respond to us. Then we'll sit there. We'll sit there watching videos by them where they try to respond, where Muhammad Hijab and all these guys try to respond to the Islamic Dilemma. And then we'll sit there and watch their live streams where they're talking amongst themselves. And we are not 1 millimeter closer to getting a serious response to the Islamic Dilemma from when we started. In fact, it's quite to the contrary. They're basically convincing us that there is no response to this. Unless it's what Issa and I were saying, that you take it all as scripture and just say, I have to reconcile this somehow. Final thoughts, Giant DOC?
Yeah, well, here we are again, a little
on our own.
Here we are again, and we are coming towards the end of the year of the Islamic Dilemma, and this is just level 1, guys. And Muslims, this is them right now, almost 11 months into the Islamic Dilemma year, and this is where they're at right now. They're scrambling. They're
Let's
scared.
not talk about this. Let's not talk about this.
And yeah, so it just goes to show, like David said, this is just level one of the argument. They haven't even seen what's to come yet. So if they're taking it this badly for this level, like they're really in for unpleasant
treat.
surprise. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen them run away from the opposition, but to want to run away from each other, that's new.
Yeah.
Because they're in on friendly turf, and they're still saying, nope, 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 don't want to touch this.
Yeah.
This is new, and I can't wait for next year.
And so this is it, guys. The Islamic Dilemma is going to force you to recognize that Islam is teaching that the Bible is the Word of God, that the Injil, the Gospel, is the Word of God. And what does that Gospel say? That Jesus is the only way. There's not 2 ways, 3 ways, 1,000 ways. No, there's one way. He's the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through him. So, and everyone who came before him were thieves and robbers. So that's it. That's it to the Muslims. You have to give it up, come to Jesus, or just get rid of Islam and say that you don't care about it anymore. Because this is what happens when you take Islam seriously. You're forced into Christianity if you take Islam seriously. And if you don't take Islam seriously, then you take one of those 2 positions that we saw from those guys, and you guys see how unpleasant that seems to be.
Or you can become a goofy Sufi. So, handing things over to the goofy Sufi, Issa. Final thoughts on all this?
Oops. Let's see. I think this is a powerful conversation. I was thinking about your debate with Daniel Hakikachu and Avery's debate with Daniel Hakikachu, and really what I see is just a very defensive position. There's not really a proactive position. It's more like, well, you don't know Arabic. That's number one. La luqat al-Arabiya. No Arabic. Can't speak Arabic. No kalam there, right? Can't speak the Arabic. And the other position is, well, the texts are corrupted. They're bad. They're wrong. There was a real text. I have no idea what it is. There's no manuscript to it, but it exists somewhere. Somewhere out there over the rainbow.
Hey,
It's like
you mix songs, man.
That's kind of what I'm hearing. It's somewhere out there over the rainbow, right? But like, it's funny that you have a powerful maneuver here, and it's a power move. We got to call it what it is. It's a pretty strong move, and it's not just some easy thing that can be dismissed. I think it has to be taken seriously. Playing this game that, it's funny because it's much like I was thinking about the debate on child marriage, which kind of really makes me sick that I have to even just saying those words. It's such a sickening concept to me, but that there are some very strong positions on that, how that's a noble thing, right? It's a good thing for certain people. But then when this comes introduced, like everything kind of gets dismantled. That position, all of them, it collapses. It's a very, so you have to change your approach. You could take Jai's position. That's a position one could take, that, you take John 14:6, getting it right this time. You can take the position of, you can do like a spiritual reconciliation position, but the type of way to engage it is more limited. It's not this like vast ocean of things, because the options that we've heard are not viable. The position of phantom text is not viable. It just doesn't work. There's no it's a conjecture, it's an assertion, it's not based. Like, one thing that we noticed from these doctors was there's no scholarly citation. Like, it's so funny, we hear so many scholarly citations about how bad the Bible is, but when it comes to defending this, it's like radio silence. Where are the scholars? Where are the scholars that defend your position of, the Phantom Injil? It sounds like something from a video game, right? Like the Phantom Injil and the The Phantom Torah.
Hey, that should be a video game, right? You're running around and it's like popping into existence, but then disappearing real quick, and you're trying to catch what it says real quick. Yeah, you're trying to see what it says real quick, but you can't.
You can't. You're like, where's the Phantom Torah? It like appears, and then you're like, I'm getting to the Phantom Torah. Then it's gone, and it's like, I don't know, and it's like it's really insulting to all of this, the history of these religions and spiritualities. Like, for Jews or ancient Israelites, the idea was the Sefer Torah, the scroll, the Torah itself, is this powerful, special treasure that's handwritten. Each piece is written, and you're basically mocking it without even understanding or knowing it, and just saying, well, it's all gone. And I'm like, how do you know that? You don't know anything about this tradition. You don't know anything about this text, and you're just going to insult it because it doesn't fit in the religion you were born into. Because that's what I'm hearing. I'm born into this thing, so my thing is right. I don't know about anybody else's culture, anybody else's heritage, anybody else's religion. I just say all of that's garbage because the thing I was born into is correct. I'm not going to use any scrutiny. I'm not going to use any scholarship. Like, one thing that I thought was really awesome was listening to how Christians could deal with the kind of pluralistic understanding of God to reconcile the Trinity within the Hebrew Scriptures, because like that's an argument that's come up. And I was like, that's impressive. I was listening to it. I was listening to Radar Apologetics. I'm like, okay, that's a viable position of how you can deal with this. Because some people are like, oh, this is wrong. It's not here. It's not explicitly stated. I'm like, okay, then you've got to make an effort. You got to work with the text. You got to work with scholars. You got to make a journey. You got to make an approach. You don't just get to make up stuff. It's like, can you imagine you get an exam, and this is how you're going to pass to the next grade or pass, through university, right? And then you're just like, and it's like an essay. You have like 5 essays, and you're just like, I'm just going to make up a bunch of stuff for each question. I'm just going to make up the answers for this, and then I'm going to bullcrap myself through all of these answers, right? And then you give it to the teacher, and you're like, I want an A for what I did. You didn't actually do any of the reading. You didn't do any of the studying. You just made up a bunch of stuff for the exam, and then you turn the exam in, and you want an A. That's what I'm hearing. That's the encapsulation. Is I didn't do any work for my exam, but I want an A for my exam. For all the essays that I just made up all the answers for, Yep,
and we have the official Islamic response here from the unfiltered Muslim. Injil got erased because of Christians. And maybe you weren't paying attention, unfiltered Muslim, but you got some problems here. So Injil got erased because of Christians. So Allah didn't preserve it, or did Allah do the erasing? But why would Allah say that he gave the Injil as a guidance for mankind if he was just going to erase it and not guide mankind with it? And why did Christians go so far astray that Allah would say, you know what? These guys are going astray, and therefore I'm just going to erase my book that I gave as a guidance for mankind. And not only am I going to erase my book, I'm going to say that Christians have it, even though it's been erased, and I'm going to say that Christians have to judge by it, even though they can't because it's been erased, and I'm going to say that Christians have no ground to stand upon unless they stand fast by that book, even though it's been erased. How do you not get this? What you guys make up, which is what you just did, makes absolutely no sense in light of what your God and your prophet said, and you just don't care. You just don't care. Well, I heard from my dawah guy that they don't have it anymore, so I'll just go with that. But that's not what your God and your prophet say. I don't care what that God and prophet said. I don't care about those weaklings say. I only care what strong dawah guys say. They way more strong than Allah. Oh, hats off to you for going there. Last two, the guys staying in a star hotel housing immigrants. Oh, I guess that's about the little girl. And the dog ate my Injil is Muslim's basic response. It literally was. It was. We just saw it. All right, guys. Well, hope everyone is learning the Islamic Dilemma. Learn the verses. Keep sharing them with your friends. And make the dawah guys think long and hard about this. Not in the Zoot sense, but long and hard about this argument and until they come up with the best possible responses they can. And then we'll make sure they understand why all the responses, even the best ones they eventually come up with, because the ones they have now completely suck. But if they eventually come up with their best response, then we'll wreck that one, and hopefully they'll see the problem. All right. I'll be posting my video on Zohran Mamdani tomorrow. Be sure to check that out. And catch you next time.